synthesize them together as though they are equivalent, really. It's a theological mistake, but it's also a mistake of hospitality. The king owes his Christian subjects more than to enter into this fiction, and it's profoundly difficult for anyone who's close to suffering communities.
He talks so much about different faiths and religions. It almost seems as though he doesn't have his own religion. It's almost as though he subscribes to all of these religions. He goes that far. We do know that there was a conversation, wasn't there, about whether he was the defender of the faith or faiths plural, and hints that he was moving towards the faiths plural. I mean, it does seem as though he sort of just wants to be a part of every religion.
I'm afraid that's partly true. We have to do a little bit of theology. Jesus said, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father but by me. And the reason for that is no other religion features God as a father. It's a uniquely Christian thing. All religions have things in common and share ethics. But at Easter, he should be saying this is what's special about Christianity.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good morning, 9:30 on Monday, the 28th of April, live across the UK, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Very good morning. So the migrant housing crisis continues. We'll reveal the towns and cities which are set to become hotbeds for migrant sites, as the Home Office also asks landlords to house asylum seekers for 5 years.
And the Prime Minister says he's going to unleash plans to reduce legal migration numbers to fight off the threat of Reform UK. The Health Minister, Stephen Kinnock, said this.
It's fundamentally a Labour commitment to having a fair immigration system, but also one that works for our economy.
Scousers know how to celebrate, don't they? Liverpool have won the Premier League for the 20th time, equalling the record of Manchester United. We're going to be in Merseyside to witness the hangovers.
Plenty of sore heads this morning here in Liverpool city centre as celebrations went into the night after Liverpool confirmed their Premier League title. We'll have all of the fan reaction.
Well, people doubted when Jurgen Klopp left, but Arne Slot's won the league in his first season in English football, and the hangovers may just have to wait a little bit longer, as they won't be handed the Premier League trophy until the last game of the season.
And are we on course for a summer of strikes? Millions of public sector pay workers, including health workers and teachers, are being recommended a 4% rise. Do they deserve it? The government says they've only got 2.8%.
And this is an interesting story. There are calls for trans children to be tested for autism. The NHS is going to screen all trans children to find out whether they're autistic. We'll look into that.
Ultra-processed peril. Junk food is behind apparently nearly 20,000 early deaths in Britain. So do we need to put down the biscuits and those fizzy drinks? And if you've had plastic surgery, should you admit to it? Hollywood actress Drew Barrymore has spoken out about ageing gracefully, but encourages others to do whatever works for them. We'll be debating whether you should come clean with what tweaks you've had. That comedian's face there. That was, she died after having surgery, actually. She was on the operating table. It's brilliant. What was her name?
Oh, anyway,
yeah.
Sorry.
But she'd had a lot of surgery.
Welcome to Senior Hour on Britain's Newsroom. We will tell you who that comedian was. Get in touch with us this morning, gbnews.com/your say to let us know all of your views this morning. We're also, I think we're going to have a live with Christopher Hope and Keir Starmer at some point this morning, but don't let that put you off. First, though, here's Sam Francis with your news.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom. Just after 9:30, the top story this morning. A man has now been charged with murder after a car tore through a packed street festival in Vancouver, killing, we now know, 11 people, including, sadly, a 5-year-old child. Prosecutors say 30-year-old Kaiji Adam Lowe faces 8 counts of second-degree murder, with more charges expected. Police say Lowe drove a black SUV into crowds at a block party, calling it the darkest day in our city's history. Dozens were injured, some fighting for their lives, as shocked onlookers described scenes of chaos and devastation. Vigils have been held near the site where mourners say they're heartbroken, scared and desperate for answers. Well, just bring you a breaking line we're hearing this morning from Yemen, where it is being reported that a US airstrike has killed 68 people at a detention centre for African migrants in the north of the country, Yemen, that is. The facility in Sada, a Houthi stronghold, was said to be housing more than 100 migrants when it was hit overnight, according to Yemen's Interior Ministry. At this stage, not yet verified by the team here or indeed by US authorities. Another 47 people wounded in what could be one of the deadliest strikes since Washington ramped up attacks on Houthi targets. President Trump, of course, vowing to keep up pressure until Houthi assaults on Red Sea shipping stop. That group claiming it's targeting Israel-linked vessels in support of Palestinians in Gaza. So any more details on that we will, of course, bring to you. And staying in the Middle East, a massive Israeli airstrike has rocked Beirut's southern suburbs, the first in weeks, targeting what the IDF calls a Hezbollah missile depot, posing a threat to Israel and its civilians. Footage showed smoke billowing into the sky just an hour after residents were told to evacuate the neighbourhood. Lebanon's president has condemned the attack, warning it undermines stability, calling on the US and France to compel Israel, he says, to stop its assaults. UN officials say the strike has reignited fears of full-scale conflict, despite a fragile truce in place since November. Israel says Lebanon will not serve as a safe haven for Hezbollah and has vowed to strike again if it must. Police say Scotland's abortion buffer zone law can't be used to stop protests when clinics are closed. It means protests like one outside Glasgow's Sandyford clinic on a Saturday can't be stopped because no staff or patients are present. The Crown Office says there's no lawful basis to prosecute those in those cases. Green MSP Gillian Mackay, though, who introduced the law, has called the move very surprising and disappointing. She insists her law was designed to protect access every day, not just during clinic hours. And streaming, skincare and socialising are now seen as essential bills by many Gen Z adults, with some saying they're key to meeting their basic standard of living. A new study has found nearly a third of 18 to 24-year-olds see gym memberships as non-negotiable, while 1 in 4 prioritise new clothes and beauty treatments. The report says Gen Z is redefining essential spending, extending the list well beyond food, housing and utilities. Among 24 to 34-year-olds, nearly 40% say looking after their mental health is just as vital as paying rent. But the glow-up comes at a price, with some taking on debt to fund the lifestyle. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with a full roundup at 10 o'clock. Now, though, it's over to Andrew and Bev.
Very good morning. Welcome to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev until midday. Now, did you see this video over the weekend? Of course, it was the Pope's funeral, very solemn occasion, obviously, on the global stage, lots of very important people there. And Keir Starmer took the opportunity to release this video of him and Volodymyr Zelensky. Have a watch. So if you're listening on the radio to this classical music bed, very cinematic, we've just seen Keir Starmer's wife flick some little pieces of fluff off his collar. Zelensky and Starmer on the balcony, walking down the stairs together.
And this is at the papal, it's our ambassador's residence in Vatican City, which is a very special building. I've been there.
So they released this video. Starmer releases this video, which I don't think is remotely appropriate on the weekend of the Pope's funeral, because it's like he's using the opportunity to depict himself as some good guy. This relationship between the two of them, it's just weird. The reaction online as well was very similar. You know, Lucy was saying here, there isn't, where is it? My wife still supports me, honest. That bit of her getting the fluff off his collar, just to put to bed any rumours that might be in trouble. I'm sick of this divvy pretending that he's Churchill. He's got no troops or money. Europe... well, there's some swearing in that, so I can't read you that one. The purpose is to make irrelevant Starmer look like he's a big player on the world stage.
It's the use of the music which I found most perplexing. What's that about? trying to dramatise it, make it romantic to Zelensky. Some see as the hero, some see as the anti-hero, and Starmer warmly embracing him with that dramatic music. I just don't understand it at all.
I don't understand what they think. What they think the public are going to see from that, because the public aren't stupid, and the British public are sick of this saccharine, cinematic depiction of this relationship between the two of them, whilst appearing to be no closer to any sort of peaceful resolution in Ukraine. We have heard this morning, actually, that Zelensky may concede that Russia has leadership of Crimea. That might be the conclusion, thanks to the work largely being pushed through by Donald Trump and his administration. And Starmer, at the same time, when he's cozying up to Zelensky like this, does he have anything in mind about how this peaceful resolution must be achieved and the role that will be played between, that America is having to play a very delicate line with Vladimir Putin? I just think it's really strange. I don't think it's landing well with the British public. I think everyone's very concerned about issues here closer to home, whilst also being concerned about the situation in Ukraine. But what a strange video to release, this Hollywood-style movie.
Particularly on the occasion of the funeral of the Pope, which was watched by a worldwide audience of billions.
Do you know...
I mean, look, he's exploiting the occasion to talk to politicians. I get that, but... bad taste, Prime Minister.
Yeah, and actually it's very different. I don't know whether you saw, there was one image of Donald Trump talking quietly, privately to Zelensky.
Yeah, that went
at the funeral.
Viral. No silly stylised music.
No stylised music, just serious diplomatic efforts being made, in contrast to this fluff that we're being subjected to.
This is all about rebooting Starmer's image.
Well, it's not working, I don't think. Do you think it is? GBNews.com/YourSay. Let us know your thoughts.
Now, moving on, public sector workers, this is very grim, I'm afraid, are threatening to strike if the Chancellor of the Exchequer rejects an independent pay review body's suggestion to boost public sector pay between 3 to 4%.
So the recommendations state that teachers should get a 4%, as Andrew said, percent pay boost, with NHS workers given 3% pay rise.
So should they strike a deal or let them hit the picket line?
Let's speak to the chair of the Campaign for Real Education, Chris McGovern. Morning, Chris. Where are we at with teachers? Do you think the mood of the nation is such that we're prepared to pay more taxes so that teachers can have a pay rise?
Look, I'm a former teacher. I've confessed that early in my career I was on strike, and I regret it now, and I regretted it then. So I have some sympathy for the teachers, and I think we should pay them well. But there's enough money within the budget, within the current budget, to give teachers a 4% pay rise. We actually have the majority of staff in schools as are not teachers. So what we need to do is cut back on the support staff. Obviously, we need to keep many support staff. We need to cut back on the numbers so that we can actually afford a decent pay rise for teachers. But overall, of course, the country, I don't think aren't going to be sympathetic to teachers, because we simply can't afford these sort of pay rises. But we have to take notice of discontent within the profession, and we have to take notice of recruitment problems. So I say there's enough money within the budget. We need to spend that budget more wisely and cut back on some of the support staff. Just as in the National Health Service, we need to give the money to the doctors and the nurses, not to the bean counters and the officers.
When you say, Chris, there is area where they can get rid of people, support staff, what support staff do you think could go without having too dramatic effects on the impact on the children, on the classroom?
Well, oddly enough, Andrew, the impact will be positive, not negative. In primary school, I suspect every primary school has got a lot of support staff, sometimes always one per class, sometimes two per class. What this allows teachers to do is to divide the children into groups so they can be taught as in groups round a table, 3 or 4 tables in the classroom. Now, much more effective than that is to have a teacher at the front of the class and the children facing the teacher. It's called whole class teaching. It's what they do in the Asia Pacific. Now, if we don't have so many support staff, teaching assistants, schools would be forced to have more old-fashioned teacher at the front style teaching. So actually that will raise standards, because we know we're already about 3 years behind the Asia Pacific countries. So going back to more traditional teacher-led teaching, having fewer classroom assistants, will actually raise standards. But don't get me wrong on this, Andrew. Of course, on an individual basis, some children need support staff. So I'm not trying to rubbish support staff. There were some great support staff, but we've got too many. Therefore, we need to work within the existing budget. And to be fair to the government, and we're not party political, and we're not either right or left. We would say, as far as the government is concerned, they've said that if there is a bigger pay rise than the 2.8% or 2.6%, which is inflation, it'll have to be paid from within the current budget. So the government needs to stick to that. They can pay it within the current budget, but you tell that to the teacher unions, and of course they won't want to believe that. They will say, no, we need more money. But if you go to the Institute for Fiscal Studies, they will tell you that since 1953, going back to the 50s, we've increased expenditure on education by 900% in real terms. Staggering, I know. And we haven't improved standards. So the success of the teaching profession is not about money. It's about the quality of the teachers. So we should pay good teachers more. And I wouldn't pay mediocre teachers more. I would pay good teachers more. So they have got a case, but we could do it within the existing budget.
Chris, thank you. Chris McGovern there, from the Campaign for Real Education. Still ahead this morning. We're going to reveal which towns and cities could end up paying the rent for channel crossing migrants.
But first, we're off to Liverpool, where football fans are on cloud nine after their team secured their 20th and record Premier League title.
But first of all, I know it's a lovely day here, but you still might want to get on an aeroplane and head off to Europe. Here's the forecast.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Whilst the UK is going to be increasingly dry and sunny this week, parts of the Mediterranean are actually going to be slightly damper. Some showers to watch out for across parts of Turkey, and a brisk breeze running through the Aegean Sea will make it feel quite fresh for those Greek islands. A few showers in between the sunshine for parts of Italy, France and Spain as well, but it's parts of Portugal and down towards Madeira that are going to see some of the most unsettled conditions, some longer spells of rain and again some quite strong winds around. But away from there, there'll still be some sunshine elsewhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Are we witnessing a crisis in motherhood and in parenting more generally? From American singer Chappell Roan making the headlines for saying that none of her friends with children are happy, to this piece from The Telegraph where an anonymous woman admits to regretting having children. There does seem to be a current trend of talking parenthood down.
Joining us now is the Professor of Family and Parenting Research at the University of Kent, Ellie Lee. Ellie, how much of this is due to cultural factors, and is it just really about the bottom line costs of parenting?
No, I don't think it is just about costs. Mothers particularly, but I also think men as well, are finding it harder to see how you give meaning to this experience. The Telegraph article I thought was very interesting. I mean, there's some points raised in it about the ambivalence of motherhood.
What really struck me about this piece in The Telegraph was where the lady says she had this difficult labour, 47-hour labour, and then all she could think of afterwards was, can someone please take the baby away so I can sleep, until it dawned on me that I was responsible and I had to get up. And isn't this the heart of the problem, that in times gone by, extended family and friends surrounded a woman after she'd given birth, taking all the other responsibilities of life off her so that she could focus on her physical recovery and on looking after the baby. And that was normal for thousands and thousands of years. And now just suddenly we expect a woman who's just gone through a really biologically difficult process to just get up and do it all and carry on.
I think that's very true. I mean, that whole narrative is extremely lonely. And what you get a sense of when you read it is that she feels very isolated, and there's not much around her, which is helping with this. And it's a really pat phrase, it takes a village, but it does take a village.
The People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools?
What on earth is going on?
Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Kelly, but very... You're listening on the radio, we're watching the scenes from Liverpool winning their 20th Premier League title last night. We've got Paul Coyte in the studio with us. Paul, what happened?
Well, they beat Tottenham Hotspur 5-1.
Oh dear, that's your team. Oh dear.
You know, Spurs did their bit just to try and help Liverpool out and win the title, but it's their... the last time they won it, which was back in 2020, it was because it was during lockdown, so they couldn't celebrate.
Yeah.
Although some people did
They did, I recall.
Some people did celebrate.
Good for them.
But way back in 1990 was the last time that they'd won it in front of their home crowd. See, the thing is, we're going to get two lots of celebrations. We've got celebrations there, everybody's having a lovely time, but the actual trophy won't be handed over until the last game of the season at home to Crystal Palace.
That will be quite an occasion.
That's going to be the hot ticket.
Because Liverpudlians know how to celebrate.
I believe that to be true, Andrew. I believe that to be true.
These are a new thing, aren't they, Paul, if you're listening on the radio? These sort of firework handhelds, what do you call them?
Flares.
A flare. That's a fairly new phenomenon of football celebration.
Europeans, they use...
That's where it's come
in
from.
Europe, they do it, and they're banned from football grounds. You know, actually, around football grounds, you'll see, this is true, there's buckets with sand in, and all around the outside, so if anybody has a flare, then they can just dip it straight in there.
But are they not meant to have them?
No, absolutely not. So you very rarely see them inside the stadiums.
Right.
But actually, an interesting thing happened yesterday, and that is you might see some footage with all these red flares going up, and there's a couple of blue ones. Now, there was a guy that was selling them was an Everton fan. So what he did was said, yeah, these are red, yeah, go on after. So he's sold them to Liverpool fans, and as they've let there's these blue ones.
I'm surprised he got
isn't that hilarious?
I'm surprised he got away with his life.
Yes, I don't think he's around these days.
I think he's sloped off a bit quick.
Guerrilla marketing. Should we go to Liverpool this morning? Jack Carson is there. Let's just reflect a little bit on the mood in the city, Jack. Good morning.
Morning to you, but there are quite a few sore heads that we've met this morning, of course, as those people partied into the night. You saw the pictures of the celebrations, those flares going off even before the game. Yesterday's game really seeming to a lot of these fans just like the formality that they had to get through in order to confirm the title win. Of course, they last won back in 2019, the 2020 season, so that was during the COVID pandemic, and so the fans couldn't be there to celebrate it. We caught up with a few today. Here's how they're feeling this morning after winning the title.
That's what memories are all about. Never going to forget it.
Best day of my life. It's hard to explain unless you're there. It was like
unreal.
Mental.
Absolutely
mental.
That's a good word to say about it.
Absolutely mental.
It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. Incredible. Surreal. It's a wee bit like Champions League in 2019. It's, I don't know, what a buzz, what a rush. It's hard to speak. It's hard to sum it up, but unbelievable.
How are you feeling this morning, mate, after winning the title?
Bit rough. Nobody knew what to expect. We're like, Klopp's gone. What's going to happen? This season could have been a car crash, couldn't it? But look how it's ended up. Absolutely brilliant.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jack. Enjoy your morning up there in Liverpool, won't you? Paul Coyte is still with us. How many more weeks of the Premier League, and what are the other big Premier League stories now? Who else is fighting for what?
Well, the thing is, we're looking at the top five because it's the top five that will qualify for the Champions League. So Arsenal in second, Liverpool have just run away with it since November, and it's down to the manager, Arne Slot, who's come in, he's taken over from Jurgen Klopp, and I don't think any Liverpool fans truly, at the start of the season, would have said that they're going to win the title.
Where's he from, this man?
He's come from the Netherlands. He's come over from Feyenoord, and he's come from the Netherlands, and the other clubs were interested in having him as their manager, and he turned them down when the Liverpool job came up. See, the thing is, you can look at it two ways. Either he's walked into a ready-made team, because most new managers of any club will only be there because the last one was fired because the team's doing badly. Wasn't the case with Liverpool. Jurgen Klopp had already won the title, walked away, so he's walked into a pretty much ready-made team, but he has changed it, he's tinkered around a little bit, but they are by far the best team in the Premier League. And so, like I say, two celebrations, they've had the one yesterday, and it will continue. So that Crystal Palace game, that's when all the... And is there going to be the guard of honour? because Arsenal also they've got to play them who's second. Are they going to stand there and applaud them onto the pitch? I don't think I would if I was on the other side.
Oh, you're so unsportsmanlike.
I know, but you know, yeah,
and
maybe
Manchester City are in the cup final.
Manchester City have made it to the cup final,
Right.
so they were the previous champions.
Right.
And Pep Guardiola has said, well, it's not really good enough to win the FA Cup, but back in the day, that was the thing you wanted to win.
Yeah.
But
Very
times
exciting.
change.
Very
Times
planned.
change.
Yeah.
Right.
Brilliant. Thank you, Paul.
Pleasure.
Who'd have thought Beverly and I talking about football?
I've even got my Man United red on this morning.
It's Liverpool red, though,
Liverpool
isn't it?
red.
Well, yeah,
It's
but
Liverpool
I'm a Man
red.
United fan at heart, aren't I, really? I have to be. My dad's...
And of course, what colour does my team, Swindon Town, play?
Swindon Town playing red, don't they?
They do.
Oh,
They
there
do.
we go.
Of
I'm
course they do.
representing everybody this morning.
That's it.
Division
lovely.
2.
Right, still to come this morning. Are we about to see an almighty Brexit betrayal?
We are.
Don't go anywhere. This is Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there. A very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. It's going to be feeling like an early dose of summer for many of us this week, with temperatures on the rise and lots of sunshine on the cards, courtesy of this area of high pressure that is building its way in, keeping it dry and settled. But we do have this weather front just skirting the far north of Scotland this morning, so there will be some outbreaks of rain, particularly for the Isle of Lewis and Harris, over towards Caithness and Sutherland, maybe just fringing into Orkney as well. This rain band is slowly moving its way northwards, and as it does so, it's taking some of that cloud with it. So as we head into the afternoon, we will start to see the skies brightening a bit more, particularly for central, eastern and southern areas of Scotland. Northern Ireland as well will eventually see the sunshine breaking its way through, in addition to areas of northern England. For England and Wales, there could be some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but they will be readily clearing their way off. And certainly, once they do so, there'll be a lot of dry, fine weather around. Temperatures responding to that, seeing highs of 22 to 25 degrees Celsius in places, so certainly rather warm for the time of year. Staying relatively settled into this evening and overnight as well. Our rain bands in the north slowly just pushing up towards Shetland. Otherwise, a very dry night. Again, a few mist and fog patches to watch out for. There may be a patchy grass frost in some rural spots as well, but most of us seeing temperatures around 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. And that leads us into a fine and pleasant Tuesday across the board. Again, there's just a risk of a bit of cloud and patchy drizzle across the very far north, but there'll be lots of sunshine for many of us. Slight breeze across the far southwest, but otherwise inland, light winds will again help it feel very warm indeed. Temperatures notably above the April average for this point in the year. And get used to these warm temperatures because they'll be continuing throughout the week, potentially locally high 20s for some of us for Wednesday and Thursday. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. Starting with the A96 at Newton of Petty, emergency roadworks are causing restrictions in both directions, so motorists should proceed with caution. Meanwhile, the M4 westbound at junction 37 Pyle is undergoing resurfacing work, leading to an entry slip road closure and a closed hard shoulder. Diversions are currently in place. In Surrey, a traffic incident has closed one of 4 lanes on the M25 anti-clockwise between junction 11 and junction 10, with delays stretching to 50 minutes. The situation is expected to clear by 12:17 this afternoon. For more travel updates, stay up to date at gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new royal newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
10 a.m. on Monday the 28th of April, live across the United Kingdom. This is Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
The migrant housing crisis. We're going to tell you which towns and cities are going to be hotbeds for migrant sites as the Home Office is asking landlords to house asylum seekers with a 5-year contract.
And a legal migration crackdown. So Keir Starmer is apparently going to unleash plans to reduce legal migration numbers to fight off the threat of Reform UK. Health Minister Stephen Kinnock said this morning.
It's fundamentally a Labour commitment to having a fair immigration system, but also one that works for our economy.
And are we facing a summer of strikes? Millions of public sector workers want a pay boost. Teachers are recommended 4% rise. NHS workers 3%. The government say they don't have that. But do they deserve the money?
Absolute jubilation in Liverpool as their football team win the Premier League for the 20th time, equaling Manchester United's record. Jack Carson is there.
Plenty of partying last night and quite a few sore heads, it seems, this morning as Liverpool win the Premier League title. We've been speaking to fans this morning and getting their reaction.
Trans kid tested. The NHS will screen all children who say they're trans and they'll be referred to a gender clinic to test them for autism.
And ultra-processed food. It is behind nearly 20,000 early deaths in Britain. Shouldn't we just be putting down the biscuits and fizzy drinks or dipping chips in ice cream, which is what's happening there?
Yuck. And should you admit to having plastic surgery? The Hollywood actress Drew Barrymore has spoken out about ageing gracefully, but encourages others to do whatever works for them. We're going to debate it.
Joan Rivers is the actress, the comedian, whose name we couldn't remember at the start of the show when we had...
And she had a hell of a lot of plastic surgery.
Elderly hour.
Sylvester Stallone, big plastic surgery.
Yeah.
His mother, big plastic surgery, remember? I think it's a very risky thing.
It raises the issue, though, doesn't it, about whether you should have to admit what you've had done because it's setting an unrealistic image of what human beings can look like at certain ages, or whether you should just be allowed to be dignified and secret and private about your medical interventions. Let us know your thoughts this morning. GBNews.com.
Maybe you think we need plastic surgery. Well, or maybe Bev.
No, well, look.
I don't think she does.
I'm sure there's things we could all have, right? But no, for now, I'm not. I might just do what Kay Burley did on Sky News. She didn't have anything. Then she had a massive facelift at 60.
She did.
She was quite public about it. I've not just betrayed any sort of privacy there. First, though, Sam Francis with your news.
Very good morning to you from the newsroom at 10 o'clock. The top story this hour, a man has been charged with murder after a car tore through a packed street festival in Vancouver, killing 11 people, including, sadly, a 5-year-old child. Prosecutors say 30-year-old Kai G. Adam Lowe faces 8 counts of second-degree murder, with more charges expected. Police say Lowe drove a black SUV into crowds at a block party and have called it the darkest day in the city's history. Dozens were injured, some now fighting for their lives, as shocked onlookers describe scenes of chaos and devastation. Vigils have been held near the site where mourners say they're heartbroken, scared and desperate for answers. A massive Israeli airstrike has rocked Beirut's southern suburbs, the first in weeks, targeting what the IDF calls a Hezbollah missile depot that they say posed a threat to Israel and its civilians. Footage shows smoke billowing into the sky just an hour after residents were told to evacuate the neighbourhood. Lebanon's president has condemned the attack, warning it undermines stability, and called on the US and France to compel Israel to stop its assaults. UN officials say the strike has reignited fears of a full-scale conflict in the region, despite a fragile truce in place since November. Israel says Lebanon will not serve as a safe haven for Hezbollah and has vowed to strike again if it must. In Scotland, police say the abortion buffer zone law can't be used to stop protests when clinics are closed. It means protests like one outside Glasgow's Sandyford clinic on a Saturday can't be stopped because no staff or patients are present. The Crown Office says there's no lawful basis to prosecute in those cases. But Green MSP Gillian McKay, who introduced the law, has called the move very surprising and disappointing. She insists her law was designed to protect access at every day, not just during clinic hours. She's now demanding urgent talks with Police Scotland and the government. The suspect of a violent attack in Leeds is in a critical condition after being found with a self-inflicted injury. 2 women aged 19 and 31, one left fighting for her life after what counter-terror police call a very serious and isolated incident. Police recovered a crossbow and firearm at the scene on Otley Road on Saturday afternoon. Counter-terror officers are leading the investigation but say it was an isolated attack and no one else is being sought. Local churches have opened their doors in response, and the Bishop of Kirkstall spoke of a city left shocked and numb. Ministers say the UK is making a generational upgrade to crisis planning with a new Resilience Academy to train 4,000 people a year for the next pandemic or disaster. The centre near York will teach everything from crowd control to crisis communications as Britain tries to fix what the COVID inquiry called a dangerous lack of preparedness. A nationwide emergency drill is set for later this year, but inquiry chair Baroness Hallett warns ministers must do far more work. Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden says the scheme will help officials identify vulnerable groups in crisis, with new software to track food insecurity and power cuts. Well, it comes as the government is facing growing pressure to prove lessons from COVID have actually been learned. Donald Trump says he is very disappointed in Russia after deadly strikes on Kyiv just hours after meeting Ukraine's president in a bid to push for peace. At the Vatican, Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky came face-to-face for the first time since their explosive White House summit, a meeting Ukraine's leader called historic. Trump also later posted online saying, "I want Putin to stop shooting, sit down," he says, and sign a deal. He claims Zelensky is now calmer and may be willing to give up Crimea, despite Kyiv repeatedly insisting it won't. Meanwhile, North Korea has confirmed it has troops fighting for Russia, hailing their role in retaking Kursk as heroic victory. The BBC must act faster when staff cross the line. That is the verdict from a major workplace review due out today. Commissioned after the Hugh Edwards scandal, the review stopped short of calling the culture toxic, but says the broadcaster must intervene earlier and set clearer standards. It's also revealed the BBC didn't do enough when issues were raised about figures like Tim Westwood and Russell Brand, and called for urgent reforms to prevent abuse of power. A BBC source says the report marks a pivotal moment and the corporation is expected to embrace all recommendations. And break out the sunglasses. The UK is heading for its hottest week of the year so far, with temperatures expected to soar to 29 degrees by Thursday. The Met Office says we're in for higher than average heat, with parts of the country set to sizzle more than 10 degrees above the April norm. Wall-to-wall sunshine is on the cards until midweek, with only northern Scotland likely to see a drop of rain. Forecasters say we could even nudge towards local records, though any official heatwave is unlikely. There is, however, a chance of a dramatic thunderstorm by Friday to break the sunny spell. I've just been told in my ear that is miserable. Yes, it is. Those are the latest headlines. I'll be back with you very soon.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Very good morning. Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. There's some remarkable stories knocking around this morning. We've just been looking at one in the Times newspaper here about the rise of polygamous staff. So basically, so many people are working from home now. They're telling employers that they're working full-time, but they've got 2 employers, so they're making 2 wages and winging it.
To be honest, good luck to them if they can do both jobs well, when you consider how many people we've got shirking it, swinging the lead, who won't work at all.
Councils across the country, oh, hello, mainly civil servants doing this, are making it a priority. And in Croydon, South London, the local authorities identified a series of red flags that managers should look out for to detect fraud. So you can get away with working in your council office whilst also working for somebody else. That's not a surprise, is it?
No, quite.
Right, a lot of you have been getting in touch about this video that we showed at the top of the show.
Are they impressed?
No, they're not
Prime
remotely
Minister,
impressed.
Warmly embracing Zelensky, having his wife flicking dust off his imaginary speck of dust off his shoulder. At least it shows that his wife was with him, if you're with me.
This is
because
true.
there's been a lot of rumour and chat, of course, on the internet. We're obviously not going to dignify that by saying what it is, but you can look for yourself if you like. In fact, I did a TikTok about it.
Oh, did you? Well, Steve said for years Blair desperately had his eyes on becoming president of Europe. It seems like Starmer has got the same ridiculous vision, whilst problems within his own country exist on a daily basis, only to be made worse by his appointed bunch of misfits. Tell us what you really think, Steve.
And, of course, next month there is going to be a 2-day summit in Britain. We are the country of summits, as you know. It's all going to be with, guess who? The EU.
Yeah, it doesn't
because
surprise me.
they're going to bring in a form of free movement of people all over again, for sure.
Jill says, I hear that many of Labour have hired their own photographers at enormous cost to us. I bet it was just to make use of the photographer. No thinking involved. Starmer just being stupid. Starmer's doing his best to pretend he's a leader, says Jim. Morning, Jim. It isn't working. Zelensky's willing to chat to anyone who will help him. Starmer needs to start looking at the UK.
Yeah.
So many of you are echoing that sentiment, that he spends so much time, Keir Starmer. Well, he's the ultimate globalist, isn't he? Dancing to his boss's tune.
And we always say that Prime Ministers gradually become more and more obsessed by foreign policy as the premierships develop, Blair in particular.
Yeah.
But you don't normally expect it in the first year. He's not even been Prime Minister for a year.
No. It was in the first few months, wasn't it? He spent more time overseas, I felt like, than he did here. Get in touch this morning, gbnews.com/your say. We love to hear from you.
So Sir Keir Starmer's gearing up to launch. Well, this is spin from Number 10, but we'll tell you what they're saying, because, I mean, I can sniff spin a mile off.
I could see the end of that sentence coming. I thought, he's not going to say this, is he?
So he wants you to think he's going to launch a crackdown on immigration. He's been there since July. Why hasn't he done it already?
Well, plans include tougher rules to stop foreign students accessing long-term visas by working in low-paid jobs, for example, as care workers and shop assistants.
Well, the Tories did that.
And the Home Office has also launched a recruitment drive which will see landlords given, this bit makes me want to pull out my own eyelashes, a recruitment drive which sees landlords given a 5-year guaranteed full rent deal at your taxpayers' expense.
That is an acknowledgement by the government that the small boats are going to continue crossing the channel for 5 years.
It's not admission of failure.
So a 5-year deal. That is astonishing. And it could be, though, that these migrants are moving into this 5-year deal in homes near you.
So that's right. We're showing you the list on the screen now. And one private contractor, Serco, is going to, it has said that 120 local authorities are going to be impacted.
So they include Solihull, South Derbyshire, Staffordshire, Telford, Wyre Forest, Allenside, Carlisle, Bury.
So many of them are in the northwest of England,
Liverpool, Ribble Valley. They're going so far. West Lancashire, Wyre.
And particularly...
A lot of them in the north of England. So that's 120 areas where potentially thousands of these illegal migrants are going to be housed on 5-year contracts, which means what it's going to take 5 years to process their applications, because one of the other things they used to say about it was, if you process their applications quickly, you can get rid of them. Well, they're now saying it's going to take 5 years.
There's no will, is there?
They don't want to get rid of them.
Predominantly young men. We don't know what criminal records they have back in their home countries. We don't know what trauma they bring here from what they've seen. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't offer some accommodation to a limited number of genuine asylum seekers. But let's remember who this sort of immigration impacts. It impacts the poor. It impacts the lowest socioeconomic group of people in this country. It doesn't impact those in Westminster who go to their country houses at the weekend. Let's talk to migration expert Dr. Mike Jones. Morning, Mike. Morning. So basically, this is an admission of defeat, isn't it? If the government are saying we just need landlords to commit to 5 years all around the country, we've got a plan to house people who want to live here. We don't have a plan to deter them.
Oh, I agree 100%. I mean, basically, you have 3 companies involved in asylum dispersal. You've got Mears, which covers the northeast of England, Yorkshire, Scotland and Northern Ireland. Then you've got Clear Springs Ready Homes. They manage housing in the south of England and Wales. And then there's Serco, which is responsible for the Midlands, the east of England and the northwest. Now, the value of these contracts collectively is about 4.6 billion. They're 10-year contracts. They expire in 2029. Serco, however, is the largest recipient of cash from the Home Office. As you say, it operates in 120 local authority areas, and it's got contracts worth about 1.9 billion. So expect a lot more of these asylum seekers to be housed in the areas you just mentioned.
And the irony is as well, Mike, some of the things this government is doing is making it more and more difficult for people to have a buy-to-let property. You can see what's going to happen here. They'll sell them and they'll be bought up by companies like Serco for specifically this purpose, migration. And you do wonder if that's even part of the government's, if that's part of their strategy.
Well, it is, because they want to move people from outside of hotels. Obviously, the cost of hotels is much higher per head. It's about £145. Dispersal accommodation is about £14 per head. So, yeah, it's part of Labour's strategy. Obviously, Serco isn't breaking the law. What they're doing is perfectly legal, but is it moral? Is it patriotic? Well, I don't think it is. They aren't producing goods and services to boost the economy. They're basically middlemen, they're intermediaries. They're, sourcing private rental accommodation and then managing the properties, and they're creaming money off the taxpayer in the process. And as you point out, having higher dispersal accommodation will put massive pressure on the private rental market, and for younger people, that's going to be disastrous.
Mike, we've got the local council elections coming up this week. Obviously, we don't have a general election for probably 3-4 years, maybe, until then. But I don't remember a time when there's been such a gap, I think, between the feelings of the people on the street and people who live on normal high streets, which are changing beyond recognition due to the vast numbers of immigration, and those who are in power, who seem absolutely tone-deaf / willing to support mass movement of people into this country. Do you see it in a similar way?
I do, yes. There's an enormous gap between the political class and the general public. I mean, in the previous section, you described Sir Keir Starmer as a globalist, and I think that's quite an appropriate description. I mean, obviously, Sir Keir is concerned with domestic issues, but his priorities are human rights laws, human rights lawyers, judges and international courts. That takes the top spot for Sir Keir Starmer. He's not prepared to do what is necessary to solve this crisis. That's amending or abolishing the Human Rights Act. It's reopening detention centres, and it's deporting these people as soon as possible. And until that's addressed, the gap between the political elite and the general public will grow.
All right, Mike, thanks. That's migration expert Dr. Mike Jones. I think we're going to put the list of these names of these companies, aren't we, on the GB News website?
Yes, they will be on the website.
Because you might want to know if it's where you live, and probably chances are it will be.
Let's just tell you what the Home Office have said.
The list of local authorities Serco shared on its website for landlords is not a Home Office list, nor is it a list of any existing or future asylum accommodation. Serco is one of several companies contracted by the previous government 6 years ago to provide dispersal asylum accommodation in different regions. We are restoring order to the asylum system and cutting costs to taxpayers through the removal of more than 24,000 people with no right to be in the UK.
Honestly, what they don't say is, though, that in previous arrangements there were not 5-year contracts with landlords, they were a year. There's the difference. That's the big change here, 5 years. Serco spokesman said, this list of councils on our website reflects a local authority areas covered by our asylum accommodation and support services. This does not indicate the government will be opening new accommodation in these areas.
So existing accommodation.
Yeah. So, anyway, if you still like to look, we're going to publish the entire list on there. And if you haven't got any these migrants in your patch, I suspect they're coming.
Right, still to come this morning. Should you admit to having plastic surgery, or has all the stigma around messing about with your face completely disappeared? You're with Britain's Newsroom on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News, the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is a Stingray torpedo in the hangar of HMS Duncan, an air defence destroyer. It's recently returned from operations in the Eastern Mediterranean. But today, on this Royal Navy vessel, it's not about war fighting, but it's about commemoration as we march towards 80 years since VE Day. So HMS Duncan has been hosting a street party on the deck here in Portsmouth. Earlier, we spoke to Commander Dan Lee about why he thought this was such an important occasion for the country.
So VE Day was a culmination of the end of, or the beginning of the end of World War II. It was a time that was a truly national endeavour, whether that be people digging for victory, people in new roles in fields and factories, people supporting at home, children evacuated, and it was such a huge national event. It is something that we should really celebrate, that it was coming to an end. With that, with the number of veterans who are sadly reducing in numbers, today's a real opportunity. We're really happy to have a number of the local school children and Royal Navy cadets here, so we can tell the story of World War II, why it was important and what we fought for.
And earlier we spoke with Ross Kemp, who's been a key part of promoting the VE Day commemoration, about how the entirety of the United Kingdom should come together on the 5th of May on that bank holiday weekend to celebrate our fallen heroes.
It's very easy to forget that the freedoms that we enjoy in this country came at a price. And the veterans that are still alive, they won't be alive, sadly, in 10 years' time. So 80 is a big benchmark. And I think we should let them know that we appreciate the sacrifices that they and their colleagues made for us to enjoy the freedoms that we have.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. We are delighted to say we're joined in the studio now by Matthew Talbot and Alex Armstrong.
Well, we feel very honoured to have you here. You've never been on our panel before.
I have, actually. I have been on once before.
Right.
Okay. What? This is great. I love Britain's. I have.
Well, you clearly made an impact because neither of us
you never invited me back. You never invited me back, Matthew.
We're having a senior
wearing a black tie because
No,
of the
it's dark navy.
Oh, okay.
I appreciate the audience at home. You probably can't tell. This is dark navy.
Right,
not observing any loss.
Shall we talk about Lord Ashcroft's biography and the claims it makes about Angela Rayner?
If you would like to.
Now, you know her very well, Matthew.
I don't know very well.
Well, you know better than me.
Yeah, Lord Ashcroft said that Angela Rayner has threatened to resign more than once.
He's been a huge donor to the Conservative Party over the years.
Yeah, he has. And he's written a book before about Keir, which was a bit bland, really, which maybe was on...
Well, this is the updated version of it.
Yeah, so he's basically said that Angela's threatened to resign more than once, but the biggest one was because she felt like she was the fall guy for these 1.5 million homes that, you know, we won't be building. I think the government would like us to build 1.5 million homes, but it's not going to happen.
No.
And therefore was going to resign because someone close to her has said that this is all a ploy to ensure she can never be Prime Minister, because she'll be,
Would she really resign? She's the girl from the council estate who's made such a big thing about her rise from being leaving school, pregnant, 16, single parent, to a shop steward, MP, Deputy Prime Minister, first woman Deputy Prime Minister of this country. I can't think she'd throw in the towel.
It would depend on the circumstances, right, I would say.
Go on.
You mean, do you think she's a woman of such principle that under the right circumstances she might do?
Yeah, I think...
That's interesting.
My understanding of Angela is she doesn't want to be Prime Minister.
Right.
It's not something she sought after she struggled a lot with the idea of obtaining 2 homes during the election and stuff like that. It affected her. And the most important thing to Angela is her family. She adores her family.
But she did fight like Billio to get her Grace and Favour home in Admiralty Arch in London.
Yeah, but that's the thing. If it sort of comes with the territory, why should she not have it?
But she didn't get a department of Deputy Prime Minister. It doesn't exist.
No, and that's,
That's humiliating.
Sue Gray went to sort of go out and bat for her and didn't do very well at it, basically, which says more about Sue Gray than anybody else. But she doesn't want to be. I think there are people around Angela that would like her to be leader and Prime Minister, and whether she could be persuaded one day is another story. But it's not something she wants. Does she also want to be humiliated by the boys' club in Number 10? No, she doesn't.
I think she's been royally stitched up with this job, hasn't she? Who on earth believes they're going to build 1.5 million homes by the time they get to the next... Well, yeah. Pie in the sky.
How many have they built so far? Not very many.
Not very many, and they're running out of time. And look, they gave her this job, and I think this is absolutely right to say, look, she's not effective. She can't be leader. And I don't believe anyone in politics that says they don't want to be Prime Minister, quite frankly. They might sit there and go, oh, I don't want it. She wouldn't stand and run as Deputy Leader, become Deputy Prime Minister if she didn't want that top job.
Even the most stupid backbencher, and let me tell you, I've met a lot of them, think they can be leader and Prime Minister. They really do.
I think of one that'll throw his hat in the ring. I'm almost certain of it. No, I can't. I can't. They won't let me back in the building. I'll tell you off air.
Oh, all right.
Almost, and you won't be surprised.
West Streeting.
But the other thing I thought interesting in Ashcroft's book, he said that the reason she was talked out of resigning was the intervention of Tony Blair. What's it got to do with him?
Well, I don't know.
He's been Prime Minister since 2007.
He's like this, isn't he, though? That's the problem. Tony Blair's got his fingers in all the pies. He's the puppet master. He's been advising Keir Starmer for a really long time. He's basically been calling the shots behind the scenes when it comes to policy as well, from what we've been hearing. So that, very interesting. Of course, Tony Blair's still involved. The man would love to be Prime Minister again, as he constantly says.
Were you a bit alarmed to think that Blair's got that much power?
He hasn't. He hasn't. I know you'd expect me to say that. Morgan McSweeney is the one that called the shots. Yeah, he's the Chief of Staff. He calls the shots. He can't stand Tony Blair and his institute. They get very little leeway with regards to policy and whatnot. Whether, it's like the idea of, listen, I'll get your granddad on the phone in a minute and you're going to ring up Tony for a bit of a personal favour. Yeah, that might happen. But you have to look at who populates themselves in and around Number 10. It's all the old lot. You've got Damien McBride still in government. Peter Mandelson's now the US ambassador and been sorted out nicely. Tony's obviously still knocking around. So it doesn't come as a great surprise. But with regards to policy, he can't stand him. Morgan McSweeney's more of a blue Labour man than anything else. They get more of a hearing than Tony Blair.
Interesting.
Right. Interesting.
Please, can we talk about this story about kids who present with transgender issues, Alex, being now tested for autism by the NHS?
Yeah, I think this is a very good thing, by the way, and I'll tell you why, because obviously this is part of the CAS review, and obviously there's young people with body dysmorphia and all these different psychological issues, frankly.
Just remind people, Cass, she's a child expert who did that major review.
Yeah, into children. It included many things, particularly on the sexuality and gender, and talked about the puberty blockers and things like this. It changed the whole landscape of Britain in the last year or so. Now, they're proposing that they do these tests because a lot of these young people are identifying as trans, going to doctors, trying to get different pills, telling their parents they're different gender, when actually what they need is some medical help.
Yeah.
And it's really something we've just completely forgotten to talk about for a very long time. Is there a mental condition that people associate themselves as a different gender rather than them actually being transgender?
It's been written off, this phrase, born in the wrong body, Matthew, has then been used as an excuse to therefore go down this transitioning pathway, this affirming pathway, as opposed to questioning learning needs that a child might have or any sort of psychological sense of... If you hate yourself so much at 13 that you want to be a different gender, let's start there. And this seems like sensible advice, do you think?
I don't think I'm against it. I think my concern would be, I reckon you could probably be autistic and feel like you're transgender as well. And I suppose, where does that leave us if we're potentially, and I don't think that is the suggestion from the article, but, if we're potentially going to write people off as, no, it will just be because they're autistic. My youngest brother's autistic. He's never been worried about who he is in that sense.
Was his autism diagnosed very early on, Matthew?
Yeah, because I'd pushed for it in a way. I'd worked with kids with disabilities when I was younger, and he sort of had selective mutism. He'd go to nursery age 3, wouldn't speak to anybody. He'd only prefer female sort of teachers as such, but you had to build up the trust with him. And I said, and they'd say, we hear this voice outside, this lovely voice, we never hear it, and I thought there's something not quite right.
That's the thing, isn't it, Matthew? Because for every good brother or someone that will put their other half, their sibling forward for being tested for things like that, there'll be thousands more kids that won't be. And then eventually they'll get to 18, 19, they want puberty blockers and all these things without actually having a proper diagnosis.
Well, this is it. My only concern is, you've got to fight tooth and nail if you've got a kid with a disability to try and get them in for any sort of testing or see if you can figure out if there is anything wrong with them or there's something else. And if this is going to push people back even more, there needs to be some level of funding or people coming in to the NHS.
And perhaps just a quick fact from this article, I just browsed the very bottom of it here. Professor Michael Craig, who led the clinical National Autism Unit from 2000 to 2023, estimated half of Tavistock Clinic's patients were autistic.
That's terrible, and that is where all this happened. It's now been closed down, and Baroness Cass was very critical of the Tavistock Clinic. That's where they were getting all these terrible... I think it was a wicked,
and interesting, and in America, the new head of health services, Robert Kennedy Jr. has said he's going to make it his mission to work out what has caused this explosion in autism.
Absolutely right.
In the last 10 to 15 years. So let's watch carefully what they're doing in America, because what happens there, we will obviously follow here. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Yep, you're back in the next hour. Sam Francis is here with your headlines.
Very good morning to you at 10:30 exactly. Well, break out the sunglasses. The UK is heading for its hottest week of the year, with temperatures expected to soar to 29 degrees by Thursday. The Met Office says we're in for higher than average heat, with parts of the country set to sizzle more than 10 degrees above the April norm. Wall-to-wall sunshine is on the cards until at least midweek, with only northern Scotland likely to see a drop of rain. Forecasters say we could even nudge local records, though any official heatwave is unlikely. And there is a chance of dramatic thunderstorms by Friday to break the sunny spell. Campaigning is entering its final stretch ahead of Thursday's local elections, the first major test since Labour took power. More than half the seats up for grabs are currently held by the Conservatives, who've admitted it will be extremely difficult. Reform UK is gaining ground in the polls and is neck and neck with Labour in a by-election in Runcorn and Helsby. The government's reportedly planning an immigration crackdown to counter Reform's rise. Labour's also under pressure from unions as public sector pay demands risk clashing with Rachel Reeves' budget. A man has been charged with murder after a car tore through a packed street festival in Vancouver, killing 11 people, including a 5-year-old child. Prosecutors say 30-year-old Kaiji Adams-Lowe faces 8 counts of second-degree murder, with more charges expected. Police say Lowe drove a black SUV into crowds at a block party, calling it the darkest day in our city's history. Dozens were injured, some fighting for their lives, as shocked onlookers described scenes of chaos and devastation. Support staff say they're being left out as AI quietly transforms classrooms, despite already playing a huge role beyond their job titles. The GMB Union survey found nearly 1 in 5 schools now use AI, but over 80% of staff say they've had no training at all. 2/3 worry it could be used to cut jobs within 5 years, with many raising fears over cheating, screen time and the loss of human connection. The union says school workers must help shape how AI is introduced before it's too late. They're calling on ministers to work with staff on the front line, not to leave them playing catch-up. Well, before I bring you an update on an interesting story regarding Gen Z adults, let's just also bring you a breaking line. We're just hearing that a 15-year-old who at this stage cannot be identified due to legal reasons has pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of schoolboy Harvey Wilgoose. He has also pled guilty to possession of a bladed article, but not to murder. That taking place at Sheffield Crown Court. You may remember Harvey Wilgoose, aged 15 at the time, was sadly stabbed to death on the 3rd of February while on his lunch break at school. So that news just coming into us, that a 15-year-old who cannot be identified for legal reasons has pleaded guilty to the manslaughter of schoolboy Harvey Wilgoose. That is the latest from me for now. Plenty more still to come with Andrew and Bev later this hour. First, though, a quick break.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Plenty more to come this morning. Plastic surgery. If you
I haven't had any. Just put it out there on the record. No, not.
Excuse me.
No, don't need any. Nor do you. Yet.
I'm sure. Never say never, maybe. I don't know. I always like to think I'd have more important things to think about.
More important things to spend your money on.
Well, that too. And it's risky.
And how much does it cost? I don't know what it costs.
I've no idea. Yeah, of course you don't. Now, don't go anywhere. Let us know if you've had plastic surgery. And if you have, should you keep it to yourself? Don't know. We're going to be debating it in just a minute. Don't go anywhere.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Good morning, this is the latest AI travel news from gbnews.com. As of now, the M4 westbound at junction 37, Pyle, is experiencing disruptions. The entry slip road is closed due to planned maintenance with diversions in place. In Staffordshire, the M6 southbound between junction 16 and junction 15 is affected by an incident, causing lane closures with normal traffic conditions expected just before midday. Additionally, on the M25 clockwise at junction 5 in Kent, there is a broken down vehicle resulting in lane closure and minor delays of about 15 minutes. Motorists should proceed with caution and expect lingering congestion in these areas. For more travel news, go to gbnews.com.
Crash Law 24 sponsors GB News Traffic and Travel Report.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
He can say whatever he wants.
A straight-talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m, weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
no,
isn't it?
no,
Because the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, a reminder of that breaking news from before the break.
That's right. The defendant in the Harvey Will Goose case, I don't know if you remember this, was the 15-year-old who was stabbed twice in the chest while he was at school. In February, the defendant in that case has pleaded guilty to manslaughter and the possession of a bladed article, but not guilty to murder at Sheffield Crown Court.
So we'll bring you more on that as we get it now. We all know Hollywood has never exactly been honest about ageing. Why should it be? Should the rest of us be any different?
So actress Drew Barrymore, of course, she was made famous in E.T. when she
I can't believe she's 50.
She's 50
That makes
now.
me feel very old.
Well, she's opened up about her own journey. She's admitted to surgery at just 17.
Oh, ridiculous.
Well, she had her boobs made smaller.
Oh, God.
Yeah, but she had breast reduction surgery, so maybe that's slightly different. Anyway, and she's talking about embracing her newfound wrinkles. So is it brave to bear all about going under the knife, or should some things just stay secret?
Well, we're going to talk to somebody you'll know very well on GB News, Lizzie Cundy, of course, and the comedian and commentator Bruce Devlin. Lizzie, let's go to you first. Morning, you always look radiant and fabulous, darling, but is it all yours?
Well, no, it isn't all mine. I'll be perfectly honest. We all can't be natural beauties like you, Andrew. Look, I've been honest. I had two boys. I breastfed them for a year, and my boobs went like pancakes. And I thought, you know what? I don't like them, so I'm going to have them done. And I was very honest and open about it. And I think that's the best way, because people could see I'd had them done. There's no point in lying. And I think transparency is really good. And I would like to help people that want surgery to tell them, you know, the best people to go to and do their homework. As we know, there's so many cowboys out there.
Yeah.
And I think it's a really good thing.
What about your face, Lizzie? Would you have work done on your face? Have you had work done on your face?
Yeah, I've been very open about that as well, and I had a terrible reaction to fillers, actually. It nearly made me go blind, and people don't know that fillers actually migrate, they travel, and my eyesight was like going blurry, and I couldn't believe it when the doctor said, this is the filler you've put in your face, and I had to have it removed. Very frightening. But then I've gone on a campaign with a national paper to go out and help people, you know, do their homework, because as I said, there's so many cowboys out there. So I think, particularly if you're a celebrity, I think it's brilliant to be honest and open. And I know many that aren't.
Yeah. Bruce, how about you? Is your beauty all your own? And if it isn't, should you be honest about it?
Unfortunately, my beauty, or lack of it, is all my own. I do get a bit of Botox here and there, but I don't feel the need to tell anyone. I think it is brilliant that Lizzie is open and honest, and I think if that's what you want to do, that's completely up to you. But I think whether you are a named person or a nameless person, you don't sign the waiver for any medical procedure, say, oh, I'm going to walk into a room and go, hi, I'm 44, I'm a cancer, and I've had this done. All too often, and Lizzie's quite right, you can look at celebrities and think, oh goodness, yes, they've been on holiday. It was a bit like, and I'm a huge fan of Amanda Holden, she was doing the Britain's Got Talent auditions, and she clearly had something done, looked fantastic, by the way, but said it was all due to real butter. Well, hand me the lard pack and let me start looking.
But I'm saying that's the whole reason why we should be honest. Look, there's a very famous ex-footballer at the minute doing loads of campaigns. His hairline, let's just say it was waving goodbye, and now he's got the best hairline. And I just think, why don't you just say, look, I've had a hair transplant, there's no shame in it, and, you know, it can be easily done. And I don't think there's anything wrong with trying to look your best and wanting to look better.
No, I agree with that, but the thing with hair is, so a lot of people still pass me in the street and think my hair's a wig, right? And I don't think that's ever going to go away. I don't know if you get hair hate online, Andrew. I do. I know who I think that you're talking about, and I don't know how I would feel if I was losing my hair as a man.
Oh, come on, who are we talking about?
It's Wayne Rooney, isn't it? But I think
No, we know about
is it not
him.
Wayne Rooney?
No, we know about him.
Well, am I allowed to say?
Go on.
I don't know. Well, he's very well known, Mr. David Beckham. I'm sure he won't mind.
I think hasn't he been honest about it as well?
Not sure he has been honest.
And also Wayne Rooney has had one, and also, you know, Victoria Beckham's never said she's had any surgery, but when you look back at past pictures, you can tell, you know, and I just think rather than people say, oh, come on, she's fibbing, better to be honest. And I always think as a positive thing, help people go to the right people if you do want to look better.
Bruce, Bruce, can I ask you, is it more difficult for men to do it? Is it more acceptable for women to have cosmetic surgery, particularly on their face?
Well, I don't know, but the thing with the hair, I think Lizzie is, the point that I was making to Lizzie is, I think for a lot of men, they can't deal with the fact that they're not. If I lost my hair, or if you lost your hair, Andrew, how would you feel? I don't know how I would feel, if you see what I mean. So I can understand why they don't want to. Who knows, perhaps an admission of a hair transplant might stand in the way of endorsement deals and things like that because you are not au naturel or whatever. But if we're going to be honest, I mean, I've been in that basement that you're broadcasting from, and some people have had a lot of stuff done.
Who are you talking about? Who are you talking about?
I think we all know.
It's funny though, isn't it? Because I think in some ways it maybe is easier for men to talk about and be honest about. Weirdly, you think it might be the other way around with the gender stereotypes, really, but I think women still have different pressures on us to be maybe secretive about it.
Yeah, and I think there is a pressure on women to keep looking young. I mean, I know that after my marriage split and he went with a younger woman, I kind of felt that pressure to look younger.
Yeah.
And I overdid the Botox. My eyebrows looked like they had different postcodes, honestly. I did it terribly. But I think I had that pressure of trying to stay and look as young as I can. But, you know, I really think it's so important we do our homework on this. And that's why I, particularly celebrities, I think should be honest.
Yeah. OK, thank you both. Really interesting.
Really interesting
Lizzie
debate.
Cundy there and Bruce Devlin.
Bruce, darling, you look fabulous. You don't need any work.
Thank you, Andrew. Mwah.
I thought you, Andrew and Bev, you both look amazing. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Well, I've always said, but you see, I've always said I don't necessarily want to look younger. I just want to look healthy for my age. That's all. I'm not bothered about looking younger.
Rested.
Control the controllables. And the rest you can't control, you just got to let it go. Anyway, you're both fabulous.
And drink,
Thank you.
And one of the most important things, drink loads of water.
And gin.
Yes.
And gin.
With gin.
Yeah, right, thank you. There we go. Lizzie's got her tea. Yeah, absolutely. I don't judge people anymore for doing that sort of thing in a way that I used to. I think as you get older, I totally get it.
I've always thought if they can afford it and they want to do it, do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't think it should be up to any of us really.
But it's just when they turn into a freak show and they can't move their face and they try and pretend. I mean, Nicole Kidman. I mean, what the hell? I mean, the only reason you know she's speaking is because eyelashes are moving.
But you see, what Lizzie said then is when her reaction to being left by a husband for a younger woman doesn't come from a good psychological place, does it, at a time like that? Like, that's what I would always just say is work out whether is it actually going to make you happy?
Yeah,
if you have your face, if you go through all that painful, expensive, time-consuming surgery, is it ultimately going to make you happy?
And what does it cost?
Don't know. A lot.
We'll have to Google it.
Right, still to come. The NHS is going to test all children who say that they are transgender for autism, which might be reassuring for some parents, perhaps, who are looking for answers as to why their children are talking in that way. First, though...
If you want that holiday sun, here's the forecast.
I forecast a perfect holiday in the sun.
Weather looking good then?
For sure, and no worries about our travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Whilst the UK is going to be increasingly dry and sunny this week, parts of the Mediterranean are actually going to be slightly damper. Some showers to watch out for across parts of Turkey, and a brisk breeze running through the Aegean Sea will make it feel quite fresh for those Greek islands. A few showers in between the sunshine for parts of Italy, France and Spain as well, but it's parts of Portugal and down towards Madeira that are going to see some of the most unsettled conditions, some longer spells of rain and again some quite strong winds around, but away from there there'll still be some sunshine elsewhere.
Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, a very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. It's going to be feeling like an early dose of summer for many of us this week, with temperatures on the rise and lots of sunshine on the cards, courtesy of this area of high pressure that is building its way in, keeping it dry and settled. But we do have this weather front just skirting the far north of Scotland this morning, so there will be some outbreaks of rain, particularly for the Isle of Lewis and Harris, over towards Caithness and Sutherland, maybe just fringing into Orkney as well. This rain band is slowly moving its way northwards, and as it does so, it's taking some of that cloud with it. So as we head into the afternoon, we will start to see the skies brightening a bit more, particularly for central, eastern and southern areas of Scotland. Northern Ireland as well will eventually see the sunshine breaking its way through, in addition to areas of northern England. For England and Wales, there could be some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but they will be readily clearing their way off. And certainly, once they do so, there'll be a lot of dry, fine weather around. Temperatures responding to that, seeing highs of 22 to 25 degrees Celsius in places, so certainly rather warm for the time of year. Staying relatively settled into this evening and overnight as well. Our rain band in the north slowly just pushing up towards Shetland. Otherwise, a very dry night. Again, a few mist and fog patches to watch out for. There may be a patchy grass frost in some rural spots as well, but most of us seeing temperatures around 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. And that leads us into a fine and pleasant Tuesday across the board. Again, there's just a risk of a bit of cloud and patchy drizzle across the very far north, but there'll be lots of sunshine for many of us. Slight breeze across the far southwest, but otherwise inland, light winds will again help it feel very warm indeed. Temperatures notably above the April average for this point in the year. And get used to these warm temperatures because they'll be continuing throughout the week, potentially locally high 20s for some of us for Wednesday and Thursday. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
No matter the state it's in, this is our nation. Join me, Jacob Rees-Mogg, for a genuine, honest discussion on where we have been, where we are going, and where we are with the people who set the direction. That's State of the Nation every Monday and Tuesday at 8 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
10:50, this is Britain's News on GB News. Oh.
Now, before the break, we spoke about plastic surgery. Well, Sam Francis,
yes, obviously
during
got nothing
the break,
better to do.
used his magic. That is Andrew and I with a bit of plastic surgery using AI. Can I have slightly bigger lips next time, Sam?
And I'm not sure what you've done to me, but I appear to have only one ear.
Well, you've got no wrinkles whatsoever.
None whatsoever. And as people who get close to me know, I've got quite a few.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank
he
you for
thinks
that,
that's
Sam.
hilarious. He's
And of
killing
course,
himself over there on the news desk.
Sam, of course, has had work anyway.
He's perfect.
No, he's already had work done.
It's perfect.
He had work done when he was very young. Got a discount.
All children who think they are transgender will now be tested for autism by the NHS under new
I'm
plans.
glad we're phrasing it like that, because I don't like the expression transgender children. They're children who think they're transgender. That is how it should be phrased. It comes after the CAS review. That landmark review found mental health conditions need to be considered much more when children are referred to gender clinics.
Talk about stating the obvious. We are joined now by human rights activist Miranda Yardley. Good morning, Miranda. Now, what do you think about this? Is it important for trans children who believe they are trans to be assessed for all sorts of learning needs or neurological diversity, we might say, to explain why they might be feeling as they are?
Well, I think there's now clear evidence following the CAS review and following there was a piece in the Mail over the weekend about this that autistic young people have been seriously failed by these gender clinics, which were supposed to support and protect them. I mean, autism often brings deep feelings of difference and confusion about social expectations. And for many autistic children who themselves, they think literally, that they seek clear explanations, the idea of being born in the wrong body can seem like a neat answer to years of alienation. Instead of protecting these vulnerable young people, institutions like the Tavistock have rushed to affirm and medicalise them without even keeping proper records of autism rates among the patients. I mean, this is not even a minor oversight, it's a grave breach of professional ethics and a betrayal of the duty of care owed to these children. It's not evidence-based practice, it's activist-led ideology dressed up as healthcare. Vulnerable autistic children have been handed simplistic narratives and irreversible treatments. What they really needed was time, psychological support, and even more importantly, safeguarding. It's not. Sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, and places like the Tavistock, they could easily have tested these children for autism.
Oh yeah, totally. I mean, it's not like this is something that's completely unknown. I mean, let's be clear about this. What we're dealing with here is not just negligence; it's a systemic abuse of trust.
It really is.
Yeah.
And do you think this will be reassuring to parents as well? Miranda, when children are presenting, and some of them, teens, can threaten to take their own lives, and that is why worried parents will often go along with the narrative they're sold by doctors and by the child themselves. They feel they have to do something. Maybe they will welcome this news.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, a central vector of trans activism has been this idea of, oh, I'd rather have a living son than a dead daughter. The use of suicide as a form of coercive blackmail has been used again and again and again. It's completely wrong. With what's happened here with the Tavistock and these self-identified gender clinics, it demands urgent investigation, accountability.
Miranda, you're right. Miranda, lovely to see you this morning. Thank you so much for that contribution. We have got to take a very quick break. Don't go anywhere. This is the People's Channel.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there. A very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. It's going to be feeling like an early dose of summer for many of us this week, with temperatures on the rise and lots of sunshine on the cards, courtesy of this area of high pressure that is building its way in, keeping it dry and settled. But we do have this weather front just skirting the far north of Scotland this morning, so there will be some outbreaks of rain, particularly for the Isle of Lewis and Harris, over towards Caithness and Sutherland, maybe just fringing into Orkney as well. This rain band is slowly moving its way northwards, and as it does so, it's taking some of that cloud with it. So as we head into the afternoon, we will start to see the skies brightening a bit more, particularly for central, eastern and southern areas of Scotland. Northern Ireland as well will eventually see the sunshine breaking its way through, in addition to areas of northern England. For England and Wales, there could be some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but they will be readily clearing their way off. And certainly, once they do so, there'll be a lot of dry, fine weather around. Temperatures responding to that, seeing highs of 22 to 25 degrees Celsius in places, so certainly rather warm for the time of year. Staying relatively settled into this evening and overnight as well. Our rain bands in the north slowly just pushing up towards Shetland. Otherwise, a very dry night. Again, a few mist and fog patches to watch out for. There may be a patchy grass frost in some rural spots as well, but most of us seeing temperatures around 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. And that leads us into a fine and pleasant Tuesday across the board. Again, there's just a risk of a bit of cloud and patchy drizzle across the very far north, but there'll be lots of sunshine for many of us. Slight breeze across the far southwest, but otherwise inland, light winds will again help it feel very warm indeed. Temperatures notably above the April average for this point in the year. And get used to these warm temperatures because they'll be continuing throughout the week, potentially locally high 20s for some of us for Wednesday and Thursday. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message. Or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 4 p.m. on the 6th of June. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
From the school run to the home run, watch a new show for all of Britain.
So he can say whatever he wants.
A straight talking show where all voices are heard.
And, you know, when are we going to stop talking about smashing the gangs and actually do it?
With the stories that matter from every part of our country.
There's a bit of a crash landing there for your Chancellor.
Bold, fearless and standing up for you. That's me, Martin Daubney, 3 p.m. till 6 p.m. weekdays, here only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
On Thursday, the 1st of May, voters across England go to the polls.
In a series of council elections.
Mayoral elections and one crucial by-election.
They'll vote on the local issues that matter to them and let the parties know where they stand.
We'll be here throughout the night.
Live around the country.
As the first results come in.
And from 6 a.m. on Friday morning, as it all becomes clearer, we'll be here to discuss what it means for you.
Vote 2025, the people decide, from 11 p.m. on Thursday.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point.
He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
11 o'clock on Monday, the 28th of April, live across the UK. Britain's Newsroom with Andrew Pearce and Bev Turner.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us. So breaking news, Labour's Smash the Gangs policy is on the ropes. 10,000 illegal small boat migrants have crossed the Channel this year.
Well, that grim milestone was reached just a few minutes ago as the Border Force vessel Hurricane arrived into Dover Harbour with another 71 migrants on board.
And talk of the migrant housing crisis, the North West is to be the hotbed for migrant sites as the Home Office is asking landlords to house them for up to 5 years.
This comes as a legal migration crackdown is being unveiled to reduce legal numbers of people coming here to fight off the threat of Reform UK. Health Minister Stephen Kinnock said this on GB News.
It's fundamentally a Labour commitment to having a fair immigration system, but also one that works for our economy.
And are we facing a summer of strikes? Millions of public sector workers want a pay boost. Teachers, 4%, NHS workers, 3%. The government set aside 2.8%. But do the workers deserve it?
It's hard to explain unless you're there. It was like
real,
mental,
absolutely
mental.
That's a good word to say about it.
Absolutely mental.
They are talking about Liverpool winning the Premier League for the 20th time, equalling Manchester United's record. As they said, it was just mental, absolutely mental. Good word.
And trans kids tested. The NHS will screen all children who think they're trans for autism at gender clinics.
And junk food, guess what? It's behind nearly 20,000 early deaths in Britain, according to new figures. Don't we just need to put down the biscuits and fizzy drinks? That chip being dipped in ice cream is awful.
And the London Marathon has broken a new world record for the most finishes of any marathon ever, including the fathers of two of those girls who were killed in the Southport murders.
Beautiful day for the marathon yesterday. That's amazing that most finishers ever. People are getting better at training, aren't they, and building up to the marathon.
And there were 56,000 took part.
It's a
amazing.
huge number.
Extraordinary. You think how it started. Have you ever done a marathon?
Can't think of anything worse. I've done a half marathon, actually, but that was years ago when I basically just needed an excuse to get out of the house because the kids were really little and training was a really good way to do that.
I've done a fun run. It was about 4 miles. That's me lot.
GBNews.com/your say for your thoughts this morning. First, though, here's Sam Francis with the news.
Very good morning to you. We're 2 minutes past 11. We start this hour in Vancouver, where a man has been charged with murder after a car tore through a packed street festival, killing 11 people, including, sadly, a 5-year-old child. Prosecutors say 30-year-old Kaiji Adam Lowe faces 8 counts of second-degree murder, with more charges expected. Police say he drove a black SUV into crowds at a block party, calling it the darkest day in the city's history. Dozens were injured, some fighting for their lives, as shocked onlookers described scenes of chaos and devastation. Vigils have been held near the site, where mourners say they're heartbroken, scared and desperate for answers. Meanwhile, a massive Israeli airstrike has rocked Beirut's southern suburbs, the first in weeks, targeting what the IDF calls a Hezbollah missile depot, posing a threat, they say, to Israel and its civilians. Footage showed smoke billowing into the sky just an hour after residents were told to evacuate the neighbourhood. Lebanon's president condemned the attack, warning it undermines stability, calling on the US and France to compel Israel to stop its assaults. UN officials say the strike has reignited fears of full-scale conflict in the region, despite a fragile truce in place since November. Israel says Lebanon will not serve as a safe haven for Hezbollah and has vowed to strike again if it must. In Scotland, police say abortion buffer zone laws can't be used to stop protests when clinics are closed. It means protests like one outside Glasgow's Sandyford clinic on a Saturday can't be stopped because no staff or patients are present. The Crown Office says there's no lawful basis to prosecute in those cases. But Green MSP Gillian McKay, who introduced the law, has called the move very surprising and disappointing. She insists her law was designed to protect access every day, not just during clinic hours. The suspect of a violent attack in Leeds is in a critical condition after being found with a self-inflicted injury. 2 women aged 19 and 31 were seriously injured. One was left fighting for her life after what counter-terror police called a very serious and isolated incident. Police recovered a crossbow and firearm at the scene on Otley Road on Saturday afternoon. Counter-terror officers are now leading the investigation but say it was an isolated attack and no one else is being sought. Ministers say the UK is making a generational upgrade to crisis planning with a new resilience academy to train 4,000 people a year for the next pandemic or disaster. The centre near York will teach everything from crowd control to crisis communications as Britain tries to fix what the COVID inquiry called a dangerous lack of preparedness. A nationwide emergency drill is set for later this year, but inquiry chair Baroness Hallett warns ministers must do far more work. Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden says the scheme will help officials identify vulnerable groups in crisis, with new software to track food security, insecurity and power cuts. It comes as the government faces growing pressure to prove lessons from the COVID pandemic have actually been learned. Donald Trump says he's very disappointed in Russia after deadly strikes on Kyiv just hours after meeting Ukraine's president in a bid to push for peace. At the Vatican, Donald Trump and Volodymyr Zelensky came face-to-face for the first time since their explosive White House summit, a meeting Ukraine's leader called historic. Trump later posted online saying, "I want Putin to stop shooting, to sit down, and," he says, "sign a deal." He claimed Volodymyr Zelensky is now calmer and may be willing to give up Crimea, despite Kyiv repeatedly insisting it won't. Meanwhile, North Korea has confirmed its troops are fighting for Russia and hailed their role in retaking Kursk as historic victory. The BBC must act faster when staff cross the line. That is the verdict of a major workplace review due out today. Commissioned after the Hugh Edwards scandal, the review stopped short of calling the culture toxic, but says the broadcaster must intervene earlier and set clearer standards. It's also revealed the BBC didn't do enough when issues were raised about figures like Tim Westwood and Russell Brand, and calls for urgent reforms to prevent the abuse of power. A BBC source says the report marks a pivotal moment and the corporation is expected to embrace all recommendations. And break out the sunglasses. The UK is heading for its hottest week of the year so far, with temperatures expected to soar to 29 degrees by Thursday. The Met Office says we're in for higher than average heat, with parts of the country set to sizzle more than 10 degrees above the April norm. That wall-to-wall sunshine is on the cards until midweek at least, with only northern Scotland likely to see a drop of rain. Forecasters say we could even nudge local records, though any official heatwave is unlikely. And there is, however, a chance of dramatic thunderstorms by Friday to break the sunny spell. That's the news on GB News. I'll be back with you in around half an hour's time. Now, though, it's over to Andrew and Bev.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Breaking news this morning. GB News can exclusively reveal that the number of small boat migrant crossing illegally to the UK this year has passed 10,000.
Our Home Security Editor Mark White's here to tell us more. Congratulations on the scoop.
Well, this is clearly a concern, I think, for the government in terms of the small boats smash the gangs policy, because we've reached...
smashed the gangs.
Well, evidently not, because we've reached the 10,000 mark almost a full month ahead of where we were at this point last year. It was the 24th of May before we reached 10,000. So we're about 40% ahead of last year's figure. Now, the government and officials will point out that we've had an unseasonably good run of good weather. Now, while that is true...
Right. It's all about the weather, is it?
Well, clearly, if you were making inroads in terms of smashing the gangs, it wouldn't matter about good weather or not. You would see a reduction because you would be having the kind of effect you're looking for. And we have had multiple instances over recent months of the government showing us the law enforcement endeavours and their successes, that they've made arrests, supply chains disrupted, all of the above. So if that was actually making any kind of demonstrable effect on the people smuggling operations, that would be seen. But I think this just goes to show how enormously difficult it will be to try to smash the gangs using a law enforcement approach alone, because they are so well resourced in terms of the supply lines. They've had years to bed this in, and they've got well-established supply routes that if one particular chain of supply goes down, they can easily get the small boats and other equipment they need from other suppliers. So it's a very difficult and long-term job, and maybe just like the drugs fight against the drugs trade, it's one you just can't win against a multi-billion-pound organised criminal network.
What is the government saying about this today? Nothing?
Well, they will point to the fact that they are working with international partners to try to improve the cooperation between these countries, including France, who within the coming months is going to introduce a more robust policy on the beaches in terms of being able to intervene and turn small boats back as long as they're in shallow water. By shallow water we mean no more than about waist deep. But it remains to be seen whether the French will actually do this, because they have a policy at the moment of going up to the boats and puncturing them with a knife to ensure they can't take to the water in the first place. But actually, they've been, for the most part, forced to suspend this policy because the migrants themselves have been getting increasingly violent towards the police. So if you try to turn a small boat back in shallow water, then the outcome may also be quite a lot of resistance from the small boat migrants. So it might be a policy that's just not workable in in reality.
All right, that's Mark White. Thanks so much for that.
Thanks, Mark. Let's bring in the Labour MP for Brent, Barry Gardner, and former UKIP MEP Stephen Woolfe as well. Barry, morning. Great to see you. Disastrous for the Labour government, this. They can't get a handle on this situation at all, can they?
Look, I think what we've heard from Mark is actually they are managing to do things, but it's not enough. I mean, just like he said with the drugs trade, this is an international operation that has huge embedded roots all across, not just this continent, but beyond. But I do think it does take time to make those arrangements with other police forces, with other governments, and to make sure that we can take the action that's necessary.
It's been in since July.
No, indeed. But look, you know that international agreements don't happen within 6 to 9 months. It does take time, and also developing those working relationships. I think the fact that we've now begun to be able to get at the suppliers of the boats and things like that is helpful. But what we need to do...
Customers, ultimately.
Absolutely.
The people coming across on these dinghies are customers. They are buying a service. Now, with any service, if you're not going to get the products you want at the end of it, you won't spend your money on it. They still know they will be welcomed aboard on land. They will be given a mobile phone. They will be given money. They'll be given a nice, warm hotel room. Whilst we maintain that offering, Barry, they will keep on coming. They will find a way.
Well, look, I think we have to stop it. We have to make sure that those people cannot do that. But I think it's not just a matter of what's on offer at the end of the day. The UK offers people a lot more than a mobile phone. They've already got mobile phones, let's face it.
Isn't it?
Yeah, but the UK offers, a lot more than that. They offer the English language. They offer a liberal society in which people can live and feel that they're going to get fair treatment. There are many reasons that people want to come to the UK, which don't simply have to do with the mobile phones or the benefits that are on offer.
So how do we therefore enact a deterrent?
The way in which we do it is both by cracking down on the criminals, but it's also by ensuring that we have international cooperation on a new international framework. The 1951 Convention is no longer fit for purpose. We created it after the Second World War, but we did that at a time when people couldn't just jump on an aircraft, when people couldn't get transnational lorries coming here. The whole situation was totally different. But what we need is we need to create the safe and legal routes that are going to separate out the economic migrants from those people who are the genuine asylum seekers.
Stay with us, Barry. So let's bring in Stephen Woolfe, former UKIP MEP, who I think you're still director, aren't you, Stephen, of the Centre for Migration and Economic Prosperity. You've heard Barry Gardner's response. It does seem to me that Labour are making very little impact on this problem, Stephen.
No, I appreciate Barry's view that he believes that the Labour Party are trying to work towards international agreements, and in that way that can solve the crisis. The problem is that it won't. You look at the numbers as we've seen today, over 10,000 people have arrived in the Channel. That means that for people smugglers, in our research, that's made about £560 million for people smugglers over the last 10 years. So this is a big business, and putting them out of business is not going to be an easy job. What we do know is where you see a strong deterrent, that results in a reduction, if not a complete stopping, of people coming across borders. The biggest example is one that we've seen in America.
Yeah.
Under Joe Biden, you had 240,000 to 350,000 people a month coming across the southern Mexican border. Under Trump, he's only had 6,200 since he's arrived. All of them were arrested and deported instantly. So the border crisis is over in the US. You've seen it in Australia. They did something similar.
Well, Stephen, let's jump in here
because
Stephen, let's jump in here because what are you saying then here? When they come off the boat here, we should arrest them and deport them. But where do we deport them to?
Well, actually, what happens is that in America, they deported them back to various countries. Mexico has done an agreement with them to return some. El Salvador has gone as well. So if we are to do it, this is where I agree with Barry, is you do need, for a British government, if it wants to succeed in being able to deport people back to countries, three things. The first is an amendment or complete revoking of the UN Convention in its current format, so that you can stop economic migrants. Secondly, you need to move out of the ECHR and change our human rights law and change our common law to prevent those who are claiming to stay here, for example, on chicken McNuggets. And thirdly, you need to use your soft and hard political power with countries where you can return those people, whether it be Afghanistan, Iraq, Iran, Somalia, which are the top 4 countries. If not, then we will have to do what the Americans are considering now, which is using our own Rwanda scheme to deport people there, which we said was unacceptable.
Barry Gardner, Stephen, just let's let Barry respond.
I think much of what Stephen said is absolutely right. I disagree with him. Well, I would say it's much more difficult for us to have the return policy that America has had with Mexico. Mexico is the proximate neighbour. For us, we're dealing with people coming from Africa, coming from Afghanistan.
Why can't we take them back to France? Because we've given them 500 million quid to deal with the problem.
Yeah, because that's not the agreement that we have with France, as you know, and that's why it's important that we get some of these international agreements. But the other thing here is really we need to be making sure that we have the safe and legal routes. Ripping up the Convention on Human Rights is not the answer here. It's having a convention that is fit for purpose, because it is important that we abide by international law. If we're going to create these international agreements, other countries will say, well, if you're not prepared to abide by international law, conventions and agreements that you created, then why should we trust you this time?
Well, good point. All right, gentlemen, thank you so much. Stephen Wolfe and Barry Gardner there. A Home Office spokesperson has said, we all want to end dangerous small boat crossings which threaten lives and undermine our border security. That's why this government is investing in border security, increasing returns to their highest levels for more than half a decade and imposing a major crackdown on illegal working.
Up next, Quangos cash in. Remember the government said they were going to be a bonfire of the Quangos. If I had £1 for every government that said they would have a bonfire of the Quangos, I'd be a millionaire. However, we're going to reveal over 350 Quango chiefs earned more than the Prime Minister last year. That is more than £172,000 a year, and you're paying that from your taxes. You're with Britain's Newsroom, GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
Questions include, do you relax in a drawing room or lounge? I think the answer's obvious there. Do you have a big flat screen TV? Yeah, I do actually. And who did you cheer on in the boat race? Easy, Oxford, albeit unsuccessfully. That gives you an idea of where I stand, but let's quiz my panel, who will get points. And we all know that points make prizes. So, Lloyd, is it called a drawing room or a lounge?
A lounge.
A lounge. Tim, drawing room or a lounge?
Sitting room.
It's called a sitting room. So, well, I actually call it a winter parlour in Somerset. So none of us get any points for calling it a drawing room. There's always an agreeable chill in my home. Tim, true or false?
Of your home, yes.
No, of yours. You've been to stay.
This is a very interesting one, and actually, yes, I think it's true.
Okay.
I think in my house it is true, because I've got wooden windows.
You've got 5 points. You're getting quite posh. Lloyd?
True. My office manager used to have to wear a coat when he came round to my house.
All right, following on with Lloyd, scrambled eggs are strictly for breakfast.
Oh, no, false.
False. You get another 5 points for that. You are quite posh. I get points for that as well, actually. Tim? Scrambled eggs?
No, not just for breakfast.
Not just for breakfast. We're a very posh team.
So it's not posh to think...
All right. I don't have a downstairs loo, Lloyd.
Well, I don't at the moment because it's under refurbishment.
But under normal circumstances?
Under normal circumstances, yes.
All right, so that gets you no points on that one. Tim?
Fans of Are You Being Served will know that the test for being lower middle class is having a downstairs loo and being within walking distance of a mainline station, and I have both.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
What is the state of our economy? What is the state of our National Health Service? What is the state of our schools? What on earth is going on? Understanding Britain means understanding the state we are in. This is State of the Nation with me, Matt Goodwin, Wednesdays, Thursdays and Fridays from 8 p.m. on GB News.
Welcome back to Midday Newsroom. We're delighted to say we're joined in the studio by Matthew Torbett and Alex Armstrong. I want to do this story that we heard in the bulletin, Alex, just a couple of minutes ago. When Sam broke this, my ears pricked up. So apparently, ministers have launched a new training academy called the UK Resilience Academy to train more than 4,000 people a year to deal with pandemic-style crises.
It's crazy nanny state nonsense. 4,000 people a year. What a waste of money to train them to do what exactly?
Panic.
Panic. No, stir it up. Put stickers on the ground.
Which crackpot ministry's come up with this idea?
You know what? I don't actually, but it's somewhere in the civil service. Actually, Matthew might be able to have read it. I haven't read the full thing.
This is
Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden's out one talking about it.
Yeah.
So it probably is a Cabinet Office initiative. It says today we're making a generational upgrade to crisis training for thousands of workers. It's crazy to me that we are clearly not prepared as a country. This should just be a government thing that's in a little box that you open up when there is an emergency.
We used to have one, remember? We had a pandemic preparedness plan and they ripped it up on spring 2020. This is what happens, Matt, when your country's run by absolute wet wipes. This is what happens. You've got Pat McFadden, who's been out talking about this. It's apparently in response to because the COVID inquiry is basically not looking at the right things and it's not going to conclude the right things.
And
She's
it's
gonna
still going on.
It's still going on.
By
Billions of pounds of taxpayers' money will be spent.
Another year to go.
And Pat McFadden said, today we're making a generational upgrade to crisis training for thousands of workers and helping decision makers identify vulnerable groups in a crisis.
What does it mean?
We didn't vote for any of this nonsense.
But what does it mean anyway?
Well, yeah, we did used to have a preparedness plan. We don't. Therefore, I think it's a good thing the government are bringing schemes.
Why don't we
like
have the
this
original
forward.
one that we used to have? That was absolutely fine. It was decades in the making.
I don't know enough about it to know. But,
Trust me, it's all right.
So if there's a major flu epidemic, they know how to
Well, yeah,
handle
you
it,
have to remember...
It was for a respiratory virus and they ripped it up.
Yeah, so we had the Zika virus in 2014. We've had SARS that didn't reach us, fortunately.
Right.
We've had Ebola. And,
Bird flu.
these things come around. COVID was one that did.
But Matthew, isn't the problem that they have these playbooks and they're always a disaster when they execute them anyway because no one can actually do them in real life until there is a pandemic or something crazy happens, and they always go too far. They always go too far, too quick, too hard, and they make all these really tough decisions that destroy businesses, destroy the country, and what are we left with? Who's scrutinising this stuff?
But I suppose that's the difference in what happened last time. There was people weren't prepared, or certainly the government weren't prepared. I assume because of that people weren't prepared. Skills being taught include helping businesses maintain continuity in the event of a disaster. Well, we're all still paying back furlough.
I was just about to say, last time that was just writing
and
a huge
this is the
cheque
problem.
from
You could call it socialism for businesses, whatever else you want to call it. It was a huge bailout, which I think probably was needed because we weren't prepared. And I think because of that, the idea of helping businesses get through potential, God forbid, things like COVID, again, a pandemic. Crowd management, I suppose, it depends what the thing is, how easily transmitted. And the other thing is crisis communications, because if there's one thing the government under COVID was terrible at, was communications on what you could or couldn't do, certain areas in certain tiers, and the whole idea of it being for science was out
we
the
had
window.
Pinky and Perky, those doctors, up every day.
Who are now Knights of the Realm, of course,
I think one's a
rewarded
lord,
for their
isn't he?
absolute incompetence.
Yeah.
Well, Bev, you'll know, and there was a lot of people talking about this last week. We've got that WHO initiative as well. That's currently the government, I believe, are scrambling to make sure that they don't surrender sovereignty, because the WHO will be able to dictate what we do during.
What we could do, of course, is just withdraw from it.
Yes, that's what we
Which
should
is what I think
they
we should
can't. They can't legally let us bow to anything. What you forget is that national government made these decisions. It wasn't the WHO. We actually went against the WHO at first. China went against the WHO, and the only two people we would join in that list of people not involved in the WHO is Liechtenstein and America. And I think the only way you need greater transparency on how the WHO is funded, absolutely. The only way you change that and try to force change is with the other hundreds of 196 countries in there. You don't do it from outside the tent, unfortunately.
Oh, we've got to be outside the tent. We've got to be outside the tent, because it's just corrupt beyond belief. The biggest funders of the World Health Organization is America.
America,
not anymore. And Bill Gates. Why Bill Gates? Because he was making a lot of money out of the vaccine.
Why do we need a supranational institution like
We
that?
don't.
What do we need it for?
Well, I think it's a bit like the European Union in an extent of, I think...
Well, why do we need that?
Good question. Because I believe in the idea of the strong helping the weak and people coming together. We are a total global world in that thing. You can get before a press release has gone out about what tier you're in, that virus has come in from Heathrow, for instance. I think all it is guidelines. You don't have to listen to them. Sweden, for instance, did absolutely nothing to do with the guidelines.
Yeah, the thing about the problem with the guidelines
and had lower death.
That countries like China dominated the WHO. They lied to the world on a industrial scale, so they cannot be trusted. These global institutions have no morals. They follow the money. They are businesses.
I'm afraid I think that a lot of these organisations go, what is the point of the United Nations, frankly?
Exactly.
Toothless these days.
Yeah, and hugely expensive and riddled with corruption.
Well, part of this Resilience Academy, I mean, give me strength, is going to be part of this emergency alert system, ringing out from your mobile phones in an event of a public emergency. Do you remember that? It was tested last year. Some of us just turned our phones off.
I ignored it.
Complete and utter overreach that is just going to waste more and more taxpayers' money. But most people are quite sensible and can make the right decisions in the event of something which might pose a threat to them.
It's called common sense.
Right, I'm glad we did that. OK, moving on. What about this? What else do you want to talk about, guys? What's the next one?
Do you want to talk about reform?
Yes.
So Kemi Badenoch's done the media round this morning, and Tory leader, in case you're not sure who she is, she's had quite a high profile of the last 10 days. Well, she's been she's been a submarine, really, hasn't she, before? And she's again batted away talk of the fact is, Matthew, my understanding, there's already little pacts going on with reform locally. So where they know reform are going to be very strong, we won't mention any areas because we don't have to mention all the candidates. The Tories are stepping back, vice versa. And that's sensible.
I think so, because actually the uncomfortable truth for some Labour people north of the border is the Tories and Labour work together in Scotland on councils to ensure the SNP are locked out, and therefore you ensure you've got some sort of continuity for the union. I welcome it. I think it would be interesting because there's no money. So, assuming they do well in Lincolnshire, which it seems they will, and in Hull, across the board, I think there's a potential for reform to win 600 council seats, to be perfectly honest. I think the idea of 300 to 400, I think they could go further. Well, I'm all for seeing if they can run anything with no money, because in 2 or 3 years' time, people might look differently at them locally, especially if the focal point is Nigel more than
a lot of Tories have said that to me. Let's see reform run a council, because their big thing is we're going to stop the boats. Well, the councillors can't stop anything. They've got no locus there whatsoever. So in a year or two's time, they could come. I thought you were going to stop the boats.
Yeah, that's very true. And this is where it gets slightly difficult for reform, because they don't really know what their home policies are. And they said they're going to fix things. Obviously, Nigel Farage made that big thing about potholes, which would be a winner, but maybe not quite.
A mate of mine sent me a leaflet saying that we're going to sort out your bin collection. No, it's a county council election. They don't do your bins. That's a completely different council.
It's going to be so interesting, isn't it? Because this is the first time there's going to be lots of reform people in positions of power, and they'll win some councils outright.
Yeah, they will.
It will be really hard for them, I think, and they'll be asking Reform HQ, what do we do? What's our policy on this? So that's going to be the critical thing. But I don't rule out a pact between Reform and the Tories, and I think the Runcorn election will be an interesting one.
It really will.
If they don't win that, and I don't think they will, and I believe Nigel doesn't think they will from someone
why
he
hasn't
spoke
your
to.
Prime Minister been campaigning in Runcorn?
Oh, he's totally unpopular. It'd be totally stupid to send him there. He's hardly an
he'd actually
electoral
be a
asset.
negative.
Yeah, he's going to get shouted. Do you remember them scenes during COVID? He got shouted out in the pub. There'll be more of that. You don't need him there. Keep it low. The Liberals and Tories are going out voting for Labour as well in certain areas,
Yes,
I've
they are.
heard. And I think if they don't win that, it's a little bit like we've won the European elections, but we've not made any great inroads into Westminster. And that'll be the big test.
That's
Right, Matthew Torbett, Alex Armstrong.
Are you going to come on our programme again?
Well, when you invite me back on here.
Right, sorted. Why are you sitting so far away from me?
I don't know, they
Do
told
I
me to
smell?
move. They told me to move. They told me to move. Maybe I smell.
Actually, now you come to mention it.
Sam Francis is here with your headlines, Sirius.
Very good morning to you. Fast approaching 32 minutes past 11. The top story this hour, the number of migrants crossing the English Channel in small boats has now passed 10,000 this year, weeks earlier than last year, in a blow to Sir Keir Starmer's pledge to smash the gangs. 5 boats landed today alone, with the Border Force vessel Hurricane bringing 71 people into Dover by mid-morning. Our Home and Security editor Mark White says flat, calm seas are fuelling the surge, with more crossings expected in the next 48 hours. Shadow Minister Chris Philp told GB News that 2025 is now the worst year in history for illegal channel crossings, and he blamed Labour's decision to scrap the Rwanda scheme, saying the numbers are worse than ever. Well, we're also just hearing a line from the Reuters news agency that at least 8 migrants are also dead, 29 rescued, as another migrant boat has sunk off the coast of Tunisia, according to security officials. So it does appear that the current weather conditions across various areas of the region are allowing a significant number of migrants to start making journeys across the waters. In other news, Kemi Badenoch is calling for a rap group called Kneecap to be prosecuted after a video emerged showing one member saying, "Kill your local MP." The footage from a 2023 gig also includes the phrase, "The only good Tory is a dead Tory," which the Conservative leader says demands action following the murder of Sir David Amess. Scotland Yard and counter-terror police are now assessing clips from 2 separate concerts, including one where a member reportedly shouted, quote, "Up Hamas, up Hezbollah." Sir David's daughter has condemned the remarks as extremely dangerous and called for an apology. However, Kneecap say they are facing a coordinated smear campaign for speaking out on Palestine. A man has been charged with murder after a car tore through a packed street festival in Vancouver, killing 11 people, including a 5-year-old child. Prosecutors say 30-year-old Kaiji Adam Lau faces 8 counts of second-degree murder, with more charges expected. Police say he drove a black SUV into crowds at a block party, calling it the darkest day in the city's history. Dozens were injured, some fighting for their lives, as shocked onlookers described scenes of chaos and devastation. Ministers say the UK is making a generational upgrade to crisis planning with a new resilience academy to train 4,000 people a year for the next pandemic or possible disaster. The centre in near York, will teach everything from crowd control to crisis comms as Britain tries to fix what the COVID inquiry called a dangerous lack of preparedness. A nationwide emergency drill is set for 2025, but Inquiry Chair Baroness Hallett warns ministers must do far more work. Cabinet Office Minister Pat McFadden says the scheme will help officials identify vulnerable groups in crisis, with new software to track food insecurity and power cuts. It comes as the government faces growing pressure to prove lessons from COVID have actually been learned. And the BBC must act faster when staff cross the line. That's the verdict from a major workplace review due out today. Commissioned after the Hugh Edwards scandal, the review stopped short of calling the culture toxic, but says the broadcaster must intervene earlier and set clearer standards. It also reveals the BBC didn't do enough when issues were raised about figures like Tim Westwood and Russell Brand, and calls for urgent reforms to prevent abuse of power. Those are the latest headlines for now. Full roundup with all the top stories at midday. Next, though, let's take a look at the markets.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
And here's a look at the markets for you this hour. The pound will buy you $1.3343 and €1.1751 euros. The price of gold, £2,458.91 per ounce. And the FTSE 100 is at 8,446 points.
My Claim Group sponsors the GB News Finance Report.
They're here. Good afternoon, Britain. Tom and Emily, what's coming up on the show?
Good afternoon.
Hello.
Does it look like both of the main parties are running scared of the Reform Party at the moment? You've got Kerry Badenoch saying, well, I'm not ruling out a coalition at some point with the Reform Party. And then, of course, you've got Keir Starmer trying to, in my view, pretend that he's getting tough on immigration. Does it look like they're scared of the Nigel Farage factor here?
I didn't fall for that story in the Telegraph. After the locals will then to get tough on immigration. Well, they've been in power since July. Well, haven't they got tough already?
And after the heat that they've received over this Serco story and all these rental agreements that they're just going to be paying for. 5
years.
It's absolutely ludicrous. The social contract is just over.
They've got no plan whatsoever.
But this story itself is also something about optics, isn't it? Trying to move migrants out of hotels into private rented accommodation, paid for by us, by the way. But that means they can put on leaflets. We've got rid of the hotel problem. We've shut down the hotels. We've returned the hotels to the people. And that's a real problem there because they're smart. And I think the comms strategy of Number 10 has been massively improved since Christmas. You've seen they've started to be on top of some of these stories. They've been competent in combating attacks, and also, I mean, they have been competent with regard to images. We have seen for the first time video of migrants being deported. They've publicised
I think that's a generous assessment, but perhaps we've got a lot more as well.
And most of those on that plane, Tom, were voluntary.
Yeah, but it's all about the image.
Yeah.
And it's all about you two from Midday. Next, we are going to be joined by World War II veteran John King before he sets off to Dutch liberation in the Netherlands for VE Day. First, though, if you want to know what the weather is like overseas, here's our forecast of top European destinations.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Whilst the UK is going to be increasingly dry and sunny this week, parts of the Mediterranean are actually going to be slightly damper. Some showers to watch out for across parts of Turkey, and a brisk breeze running through the Aegean Sea will make it feel quite fresh for those Greek islands. A few showers in between the sunshine for parts of Italy, France and Spain as well, but it's parts of Portugal and down towards Madeira that are going to see some of the most unsettled conditions, some longer spells of rain and again some quite strong winds around, but away from there there'll still be some sunshine elsewhere.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Westminster, the ultimate clique. And you're fighting like rats in a sack. But here on the Camilla Tominey Show, we ask the questions the establishment media is too scared to ask. OK, let me ask you a straight question, because I know you're a straight-talking politician. Whether it's net zero, illegal immigration or law and order, nothing is off-limits.
You had the power then.
Yeah, as I
and
say,
now you've lost it. That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show that's fearless. But no, let me finish my question if you don't mind, because it is my show. Sundays at 9:30, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference.
It's fun.
No, you didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
The royal family is an enduring symbol of tradition, unity and pride for Britain. At GB News, we celebrate what makes this country great. In our new Royal Newsletter series, you can join me, Cameron Walker, for Inside the Palace, an exclusive look every week that takes you beyond the gates and brings you the very latest from those at the heart of the monarchy. Never miss a royal moment again. Sign up now. Go to gbnews.com/royal newsletter and get the latest straight to your inbox.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Very good morning. Welcome back to Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Bev. We're on the sofas, aren't we? We've got very special guests here.
Because we're commemorating 80 years since VA Day today. Our very special guest is John King. He joined the Royal Navy in 1943, was drafted onto HMS Janus, which was involved in the bombardments of both coasts of Italy.
In 1944, during the Allied landings at Anzio, HMS Janus was sunk. John was just one of 52 who survived.
So he's setting off to the Netherlands soon to celebrate Dutch Liberation Day as part of a charity we love on this channel, the taxi charity for military veterans. So we're delighted. In the studio with us is John King, and also with us from the taxi charity...
Johnny Gore.
Johnny Gore. Now, John, can you just... John, you are an extraordinary man. You are 100 years and 6 months.
Correct, yeah.
How do you do it? You look fantastic.
Just not overdoing it with living and that, no, not going out and getting drunk and all that. What can I say? Just lived a normal life.
Yeah. Now, you joined the Navy in 1943. You were a very young man.
Yeah. I was just turned 18.
How nervous were you? Were you very nervous?
No, I wanted to go.
To fight for king and country?
Yeah.
And you were on HMS Janus, bombing the coast of Italy. You were a sight setter on the stern gun. What did that involve?
I had dials in front of me, and from the controls, where they could measure the distance of where we wanted to bombard, and all that came down in numbers, and I had to follow them all the time. And that was what they called LA, which was the low-angled firing, and then the HA was high angle for firing at the planes.
Right.
And then I had to get the different ammunition and set the fuses on the top for different measurements of where they could fire at.
And, of course, one day your own ship was hit by a flying bomb.
Yeah. Yeah, apparently what happened there on the second day of landings at Anzio, and this was on the evening, because what we used to have to do was what they called dusk and dawn action stations, which is the worst time for visibility. And this particular night, 23rd of January, I'll never forget it, we never even heard them. That must have been that high up, and they had either glider bombs or torpedoes on. So whether it was a bomb or a torpedo that hit us, but all I was on the stern of the ship, what they called the X-gun, and when I looked round, there was a terrific bang, and when I looked round, the front half of the ship was gone.
Gosh.
Johnny Gallagher's here as well, of course, from the taxi charity for military veterans. How important is it, Johnny, that we still hear these stories from people like John?
I think a country without heroes probably will never be. Will no longer be a country. And I think celebrating, especially with my generation, you know, I just turned 30, but I was in my 20s. And I feel like it's getting lost over time. And I think the values that we have today, the culture that we have today, has come at such a sacrifice of loss. And being with people like John and his friends, you kind of forget how much death and destruction went into actually preserving our way of life today, and actually how quick. This is the thing. The one thing I will say is how we can live peacefully and how quick things can change, and not necessarily a whole nation, just like the Nazis, for example. At levels of extremists, how quick they can turn an entire country, and bang, you're at war.
Oh yeah,
and Johnny, how long were you in the water for when the boat sank?
Well, lucky enough, because there was other ships about.
Yeah.
I was only in the water for about an hour.
Blimey, only an hour, you say?
But in January, I mean, people have said to me when they've asked me, oh, like, you know, in the warm water of Mediterranean, I said, do you want to try it in January?
Right. And tell us about the Our Heroes Fund then.
Yeah, so I started a fund. John's probably the best to tell you what dream he wants to do. I put £20,000 in myself. We're already at nearly 70,000. It's to pay for shortfalls on trips. So, for example, Dutch Liberation, because the government, we don't know where we are with them half the time, if they're going to pay, if they're not going to pay, which is absolutely ridiculous.
Of course it is.
But I created it to also, for these veterans, while they're here with us, to live out their dreams. So John has a really special dream of flying a Spitfire.
Really?
Yeah, so the money will go towards dreams like that.
And are you going to fly a Spitfire?
Yeah, he's going to take me on a Spitfire.
Well, I'm not going to fly.
I know someone who's got a Spitfire, actually. I can hook you up. Yeah, I genuinely do. I was talking about the Moni this morning.
So the plan is
there we go.
you're not going to fly the Spitfire, so you'll be the passenger in the Spitfire.
Yeah.
Why has that always been a dream? Was the Spitfire, because, I mean, it won the Battle of Britain, of course.
Well, like, before I joined up, I mean, the war started in 1939, and I was getting on for, I think I was just turned 16, trying to work it out. And we used to see the Battle of Britain, and living in Dagenham, which is just outside of London.
Of course, it's where my mum was brought up.
We could stand out there and being young and stupid, stand out there and watch them, like, you know.
And now you're ambitious. And do you think you'll get him in a Spitfire?
Well, I mean,
He will now.
We're doing well on the Just Giving page. So the thing is, it's not just John. There's many veterans that want to do many things. So to raise as much money as possible. If I was a billionaire, I'd pay for them all, but I'm not. You know, I'm still working on that.
And you're taking John, and you're going to take John to Holland for the.
Yeah. So we're going this
about.
week to Holland for Dutch Liberation. So I believe, off the top of my head, it's been celebrated since 1946. And like I said, you know, loss of life, 13,000 men died liberating Holland. And they celebrate them like you're a celebrity, don't they, John?
Yeah.
And you are a celebrity, John, and we are honoured to meet you today. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming in to see us. We'll sort out that Spitfire.
Yeah, and
we might come down with a camera.
And we'll make sure we've got the details of the charity if people want to give. Because can you tell us what off the top of your head, Johnny?
Yeah. So the best way to give is to go on Just Giving. Our Heroes Fund is what to look at, and then anyone could donate money there. Would be fantastic. Would really appreciate it.
Yeah,
John
lovely.
King, Johnny Gallagher, what a pleasure to have you both here this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Now, next, we're off to Liverpool. We're on the hunt for some triumphant Scousers after they won the Premier League football for the 20th time this weekend. Don't go anywhere. This is Britain's Newsroom.
Hello. Yes, it's time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. All about the temperatures this week as things steadily warm up. A pretty warm one today in the south, but quite a bit of cloud at times over parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. There's a weather front just dangling its way across the far north, but high pressure is dominating for most parts of the UK. Light winds, plenty of sunshine across the south after starting off a little misty. As I said, there's some zones of cloudier weather across Northern Ireland, Scotland. That cloud thick enough for some rain and drizzle at times over parts of the Highlands, the Western Isles. That'll tend to fizzle out, though, I suspect, as we go through the rest of the day. Staying fairly cloudy over the Northern Isles too, but plenty of sunshine further south, and that's where we'll see the top temperatures in and around the capital. 23, maybe 24 degrees Celsius, and many places many degrees above the average for the end of April. There's that thicker cloud across the far north of Scotland, a little bit of light rain and drizzle here and there, but even that, as I say, fizzling out. Some sunny spells across parts of Aberdeenshire, down towards the borders. We'll see the temperatures in the high teens, but generally quite a bit of cloud across western Scotland, Northern Ireland. Any cloud further south, fairly patchy. There's been some sea fog across parts of the southwest. That'll tend to burn away over the next few hours. As we go through the night, we could see a little bit of mist and fog reforming here and there. Still some patchy rain and drizzle clearing away from Orkney, spreading up towards Shetland. But generally, it's a dry night for the vast majority. Clear spells generally. Temperatures will dip down into single figures in rural spots, but many towns and cities staying in double digits. Another cracking spring sunny day for the vast majority on Tuesday. Probably a brighter day for Northern Ireland tomorrow and for much of Scotland. Still some thick cloud across Shetland. The odd little bit of drizzle here and there, but most places dry, fine, light winds and some pretty warm sunshine as those temperatures tick up widely over 20 degrees Celsius, getting warmer still through the week.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back. Your messages at home. Louise says, John is a true legend. He really is.
And do you know the day he was born? Amazing. November the 11th. Remembrance Day.
We use that word legend too
Armistice Day.
Easily, don't we? You meet real men like that. It's phenomenal.
And wanted to sign up.
Yeah.
Only 23 and 18, 19 and in the water for an hour. It's only an hour. Imagine.
Paul has got in touch from home. Good morning, Paul. He said, Starmer isn't fit to lick this chap's shoes.
Well said.
Sorry, Prime Minister.
But isn't it interesting that Johnny said he doesn't know what this government will pay for and what it won't pay for?
Yeah.
These boys are not going to see many more very special VE Day.
And on Monday, talking of VE Day celebrations, we've got a special on Monday, Bank Holiday Monday, but make sure you turn on your telly. Me and Andrew will be down there looking very smart near Buckingham Palace.
We'll be at Buckingham Palace.
Well, yeah, we won't actually be inside it.
I don't think we're getting invited in.
We might, you never know. Emily and Tom are here. We'll be back tomorrow morning from 9:30. That is it from Britain's Newsroom for today.
Right, Jimmy, are you there?
We're not even 4 months into the year yet, and already 10,000 illegal migrants have crossed the English Channel. How did we get here?
And do you trust the BBC to change its way? Following the Hugh Edwards scandal, a new publication will be published today with various proposals for the organisation. After the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there. A very good morning to you. This is your GB News weather forecast provided by the Met Office. It's going to be feeling like an early dose of summer for many of us this week, with temperatures on the rise and lots of sunshine on the cards, courtesy of this area of high pressure that is building its way in, keeping it dry and settled. But we do have this weather front just skirting the far north of Scotland this morning, so there will be some outbreaks of rain, particularly for the Isle of Lewis and Harris, over towards Caithness and Sutherland, maybe just fringing into Orkney as well. This rain band is slowly moving its way northwards, and as it does so, it's taking some of that cloud with it. So as we head into the afternoon, we will start to see the skies brightening a bit more, particularly for central, eastern and southern areas of Scotland. Northern Ireland as well will eventually see the sunshine breaking its way through, in addition to areas of northern England. For England and Wales, there could be some mist and fog patches around first thing this morning, but they will be readily clearing their way off. And certainly, once they do so, there'll be a lot of dry, fine weather around. Temperatures responding to that, seeing highs of 22 to 25 degrees Celsius in places, so certainly rather warm for the time of year. Staying relatively settled into this evening and overnight as well. Our rain bands in the north slowly just pushing up towards Shetland. Otherwise, a very dry night. Again, a few mist and fog patches to watch out for. There may be a patchy grass frost in some rural spots as well, but most of us seeing temperatures around 8 to 10 degrees Celsius. And that leads us into a fine and pleasant Tuesday across the board. Again, there's just a risk of a bit of cloud and patchy drizzle across the very far north, but there'll be lots of sunshine for many of us. Slight breeze across the far southwest, but otherwise inland, light winds will again help it feel very warm indeed. Temperatures notably above the April average for this point in the year. And get used to these warm temperatures because they'll be continuing throughout the week, potentially locally high 20s for some of us for Wednesday and Thursday. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
A positive outlook through the night will power through to a bright day ahead. Boxed Home Battery Storage, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Courtesy of Marquis Leisure, you could be driving away with this brand new Elnag Baron 560 motorhome. It comfortably sleeps 4, comes with sky roof, integrated kitchen and bathroom, and is worth over £67,000. And that's not all, as we'll also give you a further £5,000 in tax-free cash to make sure that wherever this motorhome takes you, it takes you there in style. For another chance to win the lot, text WIN to 63225. One entry costs £2.50 plus one standard network rate message, or text BONUS to 63225. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start at £2.50. Call 0903 686 3232. Calls cost £2.50 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB13 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines closed